सो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट आप मुझे बताइए, आपने सभी ने सिलेबस देखा है कि हमारा सिलेबस क्या है GS2 का? थोड़ा
Yes.
इंटरेक्टिव रखिए, क्योंकि पॉलिटी में अगर आप थोड़ा अगर इंटरेक्टिव नहीं रहेंगे तो मुझे नहीं पता रहेगा ना कि आपको कितना नॉलेज है पॉलिटी का। बिकॉज पॉलिटी ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है कि सभी लोग पढ़े हुए होते हैं, राइट? सो इफ यू आर मोर कम्युनिकेटिंग विद मी देन आई कैन इवॉल्व यू, तो वो हमारे लिए भी बेटर रहेगा, आपके लिए भी बेटर रहेगा, राइट? तो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट ये बताइए, आप सबने सिलेबस पढ़ा है इसका?
यस सर।
That's
यस
fine.
सर।
तो किसी को बेसिक कंसेप्ट में इश्यूज हैं क्या? पॉलिटी के बेसिक कंसेप्ट नहीं उनको पता है, या कोई एक अच्छे तरीके से पढ़ा नहीं है? क्योंकि हमारा मेनली पर्पस रहेगा कि कनेक्टिंग डॉट्स करना, हमारा पर्पस रहेगा कि एग्जाम में किस तरीके के क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाते हैं एंड देन व्हाट वी शुड राइट इन द एग्जाम, राइट? तो ऐसा किसी को बेसिक इश्यूज तो नहीं है ना पॉलिटी में, किसी को बेसिक कंसेप्ट ना पता हो, या फिर वन से टाइम रीडिंग ना किया हो स्टैंडर्ड बुक का, या फिर जो भी जहाँ से भी आपने पढ़ा हो? दैट इज गुड विद ऑल ऑफ यू, फाइन, राइट? तो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट हम एक बार सिलेबस देख लेते हैं। मैं आपको एक लेमन टर्म में आपको सिलेबस डिफाइन कर देता हूँ, सिलेबस बता देता हूँ कि हमारा सिलेबस क्या है। क्योंकि अगर हम सिलेबस को अच्छे से समझेंगे तो हमारे लिए लिखना भी आसान रहेगा। तो मैं मेरा स्क्रीन शेयर हो गया सभी के साथ?
Yes, sir.
यस सर।
यस सर।
तो फर्स्ट हम देखते हैं कि आंसर हमें किस तरीके से लिखना चाहिए, right? तो एक अच्छा आंसर हम जब भी लिख सकते हैं जब हम एक क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छे से जानते हैं, राइट? इफ यू नो द क्वेश्चन इन अ वेरी वेल मैनर देन ओनली यू कैन राइट अ बेटर आंसर। तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम क्या होता है कि स्टूडेंट मेनली फोकस ऑन द आंसर्स बट दे डू नॉट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड द क्वेश्चन, कि क्वेश्चन में पूछा क्या गया है, व्हाट दे हैव आस्क्ड, व्हाट द एग्जामिनर हैज आस्क्ड। तो ये काफी मच इम्पोर्टेंट है कि आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि एग्जामिनर ने क्या पूछा है। अगर आपको जितने अच्छे से पता है कि उस किस डायरेक्शन में क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है, किस सेगमेंट से क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है, द बेटर यू कैन राइट द आंसर, राइट? तो हमेशा गिव सम टाइम टू द क्वेश्चन। आप क्वेश्चन को डिसाइफर कीजिए कि हाउ मेनी पार्ट्स ए क्वेश्चन हैज, in which dimension or which part of the syllabus the question is being asked, right? So try to understand the question first, then only you write the answer in that asked format। जिस format में question पूछा है उसी format में फिर आप आंसर कीजिए। So we have to work at home first, then we can write in the exam hall। तो एग्जामिनर कहाँ से क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं? कैन यू टेल मी? एग्जामिनर हम जो क्वेश्चन फ्रेम करेगा, he should have something or she should have something, from there he can frame the question। तो कहाँ से क्वेश्चन फ्रेम करेगा, कोई आइडिया है आपको? क्योंकि रैंडम तो फ्रेम नहीं करेंगे वो, राइट?
Sir, syllabus and PYQ के देख के।
वेरी गुड। तो फर्स्ट ही विल फॉलो द सिलेबस और PY। वेरी गुड। नेक्स्ट,
कंटेम्प्रेरी कुछ
current
अफेयर
situation
जो
क्या है?
चल रहा है।
very good, based on the current affair events, right? For example, if there is a president election, then he can frame the question from the president aspect. If there is election in the US or India, then he can correlate with these two aspects, right? So these are the mainly two dimensions, from there the examiner generally asks the questions। So it is a first and foremost thing for all of us कि हम पहले syllabus को अच्छे से understand कर लें, because if you understand the syllabus very well, तो अगर आप क्वेश्चन को भी उतना अच्छा लिख सकते हैं, राइट? तो इट इज अवर ड्यूटी, इट इज अ मोरल ड्यूटी कह लें हम, या फिर एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से हमारा ड्यूटी है दैट यू हैव टू डेली रीड द सिलेबस ऑफ द एग्जाम, राइट? क्योंकि आप जितना अच्छा सिलेबस को अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे, कोरिलेट करेंगे, द बेटर यू कैन राइट द आंसर। एंड बिलीव मी, अगर आपको सिलेबस अच्छे से याद है तो अगर आपको बेशक ना पता हो कि आंसर में क्या लिखना है, बट यू कैन राइट द आंसर बिकॉज ऑफ यू नो कि एग्जामिनर कैन आस्क in that direction, right? Next is how to write answer। सौरभ सर, आई नो कि उन्होंने बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस किया है, बट आई विल गिव यू द समराइज्ड वे, राइट? हाउ टू राइट आंसर, बिकॉज आई वाज आल्सो चेकिंग फ्यू कॉपीज, तो उसमें थोड़ा इश्यूज आ रहे थे, दैट्स व्हाई आई एम डिस्कसिंग इट। बिकॉज हमारा पर्सपेक्टिव मेनली मेंस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से है कि मेंस में हमें आंसर किस तरीके से लिखना है, राइट? तो फर्स्ट एवरीवन शुड राइट द इंट्रोडक्शन, राइट? एंड इंट्रोडक्शन जस्ट डायरेक्टली हिट द क्वेश्चन। आप पेरिफेरी में मत जाइए, कोई एक फिलोसॉफिकल वे मत दीजिए, यू जस्ट डायरेक्टली हिट द क्वेश्चन, जो एग्जामिनर ने क्वेश्चन पूछे आप डायरेक्टली उसको हिट कीजिए। एंड इंट्रोडक्शन शुड बी विद इन 2-3 और मैक्सिमम 4 लाइंस, राइट, मैक्सिमम 4 लाइंस। तो 2-3 लाइंस में आप अपना इंट्रोडक्शन कर दीजिए। देन कम्स टू द बॉडी पार्ट, एंड बॉडी पार्ट विल कवर ऑल द एस्पेक्ट ऑफ योर सिलेबस, राइट, किस डायरेक्शन में उसने क्वेश्चन फॉर्मेट में पूछा है। एंड देन इन बॉडी पार्ट यू हैव टू मेक एन आर्गुमेंट, राइट। In argument, how can you make the argument? You can make the argument based on your articles, right? Because you are making the argument based on the constitutional provisions, right? So you can mention the article, because if a question is related to the cat, so which article talks about the cat egg? Can you tell me which article of Indian Constitution?
148.
Very good, 148. If there is a question is related to the right to privacy, then which article you have to mention?
21.
21.
Very good.
21.
Very good. If is talking about reservation for SC and ST community, then which article is talking about? Article 324. Which one is? I think 332, right? Right. And then if he is talking about the right to vote, then it is which article it is?
326.
Okay. 324, 326.
26.
Right. Okay. So in such way, you have to mention the first the article. If they are asking, then you have to mention the articles of the Constitution. Along with, you have to mention the Supreme Court judgment, right? Based on the question, कि question में किस तरीके का framework frame किया है. Not, you don't have to unnecessarily put those article or judgment, but based on the question, you have to mention the judgment, because there are certain judgment nearly 4 to 50 that are very much important for us for writing an answer. So it is very much important for for writing answer in polity segment that you must know the judgment. So there are some famous judgment. Can you tell me?
Sir, Kesavananda Bharati case.
Very good. Keshavanand Bharati case, 1973. It's talk about the
Basic structure doctrine.
evolution of the basic structure of doctrine. Right. So what is it all about?
Sir, Supreme Court can amend any part of the Constitution without altering the basic structure.
Parliament, not the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, but basic structure should not be disturbed, right? So it's 73. Any more judgment? You know about it?
Sir, Puttaswamy
Gandhi
case
case.
related to privacy.
Very good. Puttaswamy to talk about the Article 21, right to privacy, and that mainly focusing on the digital domain, right? Very good. Any other judgment? SR Bowman case, do you know?
Sir, Visakha Dutta case for sexual harassment.
Very good. Based on the Visakha guidelines, Supreme Court gave the verdict, right, 2013, regarding the preserving the dignity of the woman at the workplace. Very good. Any other judgment? You know about it?
Sir,
Sir,
Maneka
stay-
Gandhi case.
Yes, carry on.
Maneka Gandhi case regarding due process of law.
Very good. Maneka Gandhi case, talking about the expansion of the Article 21, right to freedom outside of the India, right? So it's talk about the due process of law. Due process of law. Earlier it was procedure
Procedure
established by law.
establishment.
Very good. Right. So why these judgments are very much important? Because it shows how well you know the syllabus, how well you understand the constitutions, how the constitution is evolving itself, right? तो constitution evolve कर रहा है अपने आप को. तो अगर आप ये judgment अगर mention करेंगे, because examiner will have keep in mind कि आप ये judgment को mention करें. He wants it, right? If you don't mention these things, then examiner will think कि आपको understanding नहीं है subject की perfectly, because we derive all the things from the constitution itself, and Supreme Court is not saying anything new. He is just interpreting the constitution, right? कोई खुद से तो कुछ कह नहीं रहा है. He is giving the judgment based on the interpretation.
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜି ଏବେ 14 ଯିବେ ଆଜ୍ଞା
Please off your mic.
ପିଙ୍କି ଦିଅ ବାହାଘରେ
प्लीज ऑफ योर माइक, जिनका भी मतलब उनको बोलना नहीं है, राइट। सो ये है, तो इसलिए हमेशा सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट पता होना चाहिए। देन सर्टेन कमिटीज आर फॉर्म्ड, so you have to mention the recommendation of those committees, and these you can have in your way forward or recommendation, right, or conclusions. You can have these things. If you are having these things in your answers, then examiner have to give you the marks, right? So rather than going periphery or repeating or tautologing the things, it is always better you write your answer within these dimensions, and your syllabus will be the main factor. On the basis of it you have to write your answer, right? ठीक है ना? यहाँ तक किसी को कोई इश्यूज है तो बताइए मुझे आप। तो जस्ट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि आप ये सारी चीजें जब लिखें तो ये चीजें सब कवर हो जाए अच्छे तरीके से, राइट। नाउ कम्स टू द syllabus part, right? That's why I always emphasize that the better you know the syllabus, the better you understand the question, and the better you can write the answer, right? तो एक ये chronological process है, तो first syllabus पे हमें focus करना है. So the general studies syllabus is talking about governance, constitution, polity, right? So we will talk this dimension only. So can you tell me what is the polity? Anyone can please tell me what is the polity?
It's about the political institutions, it's like parliament or the political positions.
Okay.
MPs.
It is a structured group of the like-minded people, right? Like-minded people have the political interest, right? In the sense that they are accepted by the people. एक purpose होता है, एक political entities होता है, and then you can call them government, right? Then when they function, if there is a government, when its function is deliver its functions, then what you call it?
Governance.
Governance, very good. When they deliver their function, then we call it governance. And then governance can be a bad governance or good governance, right? But if they work for the well-being of the people, if we are working for the well-being of people, then it is the good governance, right? If they are using the ICT, information and communication technology, then what you call it?
Sir, e-governance.
E-governance.
Very good, e-governance. मैं काफी लेमन टर्म में आपको समझा रहा हूँ, because I am not using very high words so that you confuse yourself. एक लेमन टर्म में मैं आपको चीजों की समझाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. That is the function of a teacher, right? तो जब आप गुड गवर्नेंस करेंगे, because no one is interested in the bad governance. Why? Can you tell me why no one is interested in the bad governance?
Because
It
it
is
will
against
affect
their
to
interest.
Anyone? Please repeat me. Please repeat.
Sir, it is
Because
against the interest of the subjects.
okay. What else it can be? ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट सेशन हमारा बेसिक फाउंडेशन पे, ओनली बेसिक फाउंडेशन है पॉलिटिकल गवर्नेंस, करेक्ट? व्हेन दिस गवर्नेंस, आई विल टेल यू लेटर, if this governance having inculcate the dimension of ethical and moral principles, right? If it has the ethical and moral principles, then what you call it?
Good
Ethical governance.
Ethical governance, right? Right. So it is the ethical governance. Why? Good governance will focus on the law, rules, regulations, right? It will focus on the law, rules and regulations. But good governance focus on the rule, right? Along with what else it can be? Governance will focus on the rule, law and regulations, and good governance focus on the efficiency, right? It will focus on the efficiency and inclusivity, right? Good governance. And ethical governance will focus on the ethical and moral aspect. So can you differentiate in three things: governance, good governance, and ethical governance? Now, can you differentiate with it? Because they can ask this question in both paper, GS2 or GS4, right? तो हम comparative study कर रहे हैं. In governance, you will basically focus on the rules and regulations, or laws. The laws can make by the parliament, right? And it is delegated the power to the executive. Then it is known as the rule and regulations, right? तो law parliament ने बना दी, इसके basis पे आप काम करेंगे. Then it is the governance. For example, if I say if some person is 60 years old, give him a old age pension, right? If a person is 60 years, more than 60 years, and if he comes on the office, then you have to give him, register him or her in the old age pension schemes, right? तो ये क्या हो गया हमारा governance हो गया, right? Because government is doing for the betterment to the people. Generally governance हम word use करते हैं, that is used for the good aspect, right? Now good governance is basically focus on the efficiency and effectiveness, right? In that scenario, government will go forward and made the campaign in the door to door and will ask the people कि आप आइए, and it is the scheme of the government, please join it, right? Then it is focusing on the efficiency and inclusivity, right? But in ethical dimensions, if some person does not having the documents, right, but he is very much needy, in that scenario, government will provide him benefit for the time being without the documents, right? Because as per law, rules and regulation will work based on it कि आप रूल और रेगुलेशन है, उसी के बेसिस पे आप गवर्नमेंट की बेनिफिशियरी का बेनिफिट ले सकते हैं. But this person at that time does not having the document. Despite of it, government will provide him benefit for the time being, and government will help him making the documents. For example, if does not having the age certificate, the government will help him forming the age certificate, and later then government will register him in the old age pension schemes, right? Then it is known as the ethical governance, because it is ethical and moral aspect. If someone is old age, he is not capable to earn his livelihood, then it is the moral duty of the government, because he ultimately work for the well-being of the people. So it will be the part of the ethical governance, right? यहाँ तक किसी को कोई डाउट है? बताइए.
No, sir.
कंसेप्ट आया समझ में कि क्या डिफरेंस इन चीजों में, राइट?
Yes, sir.
वेरी गुड. नाउ लेट्स फोकस ऑन सेकंड बेसिक कंसेप्ट पे हम जाते हैं कि सबसे एक टर्म्स आता है स्टेट, राइट? एक स्टेट होता है, एक स्टेट में क्या
Excuse me,
होता है,
sir.
राइट? हाँ, क्या क्या होता है बताइए.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I want to ask one thing. If there is a governance, and just like in Western countries, there is the people's the citizens are participating himself in the governance, and just like they are completely aware about the schemes and all. So
Okay.
in that case, how we'll define the good governance and the governance? Because as you said, in good governance, you have to make people aware about these are the schemes. You have to be aware about it. So in that sense, it is increasing efficiency. But if you will look after the Western model, in that case, how we can define the good governance and the governance?
Okay. It is a part of state, good governance or bad governance, right? Or ethical governance. So first and foremost, the arms of the state, first is the people, right? The citizens, you can say it, citizens, right? I'm talking about the which things include the state, who are the organs of the state, right? So first is the people or citizens are the state, right? Second,
Yes, sir.
state can have the form of governance, right? Form of government, right? The state can have a form of the government. So what are the forms of the government? Can you tell me? आप बताइए कौन कौन सी गवर्नमेंट के फॉर्म्स होते हैं?
Sir,
Parliamentary
democracy,
presidency.
First, democracy, very good. Second,
communism,
that is the ideology. That is not the form of the government. It is the ideology.
Presidential government.
Sir, president, parliament.
It is
Authoritarian.
the, okay. It is the nature of the government, right? that you are talking about, there's a nature of the parliament form of government or presidential form of government, right? Very good.
Monarchical form of government.
Very good. Monarchy. I will tell you why it is form of government, right? And third is
Totalitarianism.
Sir, authoritarian.
Authoritarian is the nature of the government, right? Authoritarian in the sense that certain a group of people is running the government, right?
Sir, anarchy.
Anarchy is also a nature of government. It's individual thing that he is the state, right?
Autocratic.
Autocratic is not. Have you heard about theocracy?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
And democracy, what you will what is the central theme of the democracies?
Rule by people.
Very good. People centric. If I can, people centric. If someone, I think everyone has heard the quote of the statement of the Abraham Lincoln: government of people, by the people, or for the people, right? So in this democracy, people are the center, right? Everything is to be done by the people, right? Whoever they choose, they have to work for their betterment, right? So state is a mean. In that scenario, state is a mean. So who is supreme? Tell me, in democracy, who is supreme?
People, citizens.
People.
Very good. People, if specifically if I talk about, it is the citizens, right? Citizens are the supreme, right? Now you can relate your past knowledge. Okay, why this term is very much important? Why everyone is talking about save the democracy, save the democracy? Now I'm just trying to evolve your mind, right? The जो आपके पास knowledge है मैं उसको evolve कर रहा हूँ, correlate कर रहा हूँ बस, right? So democracy is mainly focusing on the people. Monarchy,
The rule by monarch, a king.
very good. तो democracy में क्या होगा? Rule of people, right? Rule of citizens. In monarchy, rule of king, right? इन डेमोक्रेसी में जो लोग चाहते हैं वो होगा, इन मोनार्की में जो किंग चाहता है वो होगा, राइट? एंड थियोक्रेसी,
Rule by
थियोक्रेसी,
priest.
Religion.
यस, रूल
Priest.
either coming from the god, either from the scriptures, or either from the priest class, right? Right. In this scenario, if I ask you which is good for the people perspective,
Sir, it depends case by case basis.
okay, so do you prefer, do you believe in liberty or equality or fraternity? Do you believe?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now just, and then if these three things are together, then it is known as the justice, right? If they are in the right proportions, then it is known as the justice. Liberty, equality, and fraternities comes together and form the justice. Now tell me, these, everyone believes, everyone wants it, right? So in out of three, where these three things are protected? Now you tell me, कि आपने कहा कि cases by cases होगा. अब now tell me, where these three things are protected? In monarchy, of course, in democracy. In monarchy, the king,
Democracy.
in monarchy, equality will not be there. Liberty will not also be there, right? Because king is the supreme. And then fraternity will also not be there. Then justice will not be delivered, right? Same is the theocracy. The god is supreme, either priest is supreme. They can tilt the rules, they can make the rules for their own benefits, and general public can be exploited by the ruling class, right? So can you give me the example of theocracy?
Pope.
Pakistan.
No, it is not theocratic. It's right, they are theocracy, but actually they are not. Saudi Arabia, where the king is there, right? For example, Saudi Arabia, right? They say that we are running based on the Islamic nations, right?
Sir, even
So
the Taliban rule.
Qatar is there, Taliban is also there, right? Very good. Taliban is also there, but right now some states are recognizing it, some nations are not recognizing Taliban right now. So it is not Taliban, rather it's say Afghanistan, right? So we will talk about the state perspective. Monarchy.
Sir, isn't Saudi Arabia will come under monarchy?
No, it is not completely monarchy, right? Because they derive their powers from the god. They say that okay, we are based on the religious scriptures. Yes, they are also monarchy. There is a both the aspect is there. Monarchy and theocracy, both things are amalgamation is there, right? Not perfectly theocratic, not perfectly monarchy. They are mixed. Or it is not new thing. They can be democracy and monarchy also. For example, UK is a democratic monarch, right? The monarchy in UK also there. There can be both the elements in within a one nation. For example, if I North Korea, if I talk about the North Korea, there is a monarchy is there because they are the communists, so they don't believe in any religion, right? So it is the completely monarchy is there, right? But if a nation is talking about that we uphold our religions, or we work as per the rule. For example, if you ask the Saudi Arabia, they try to make the rules based on Sharia, right? That's why they are monarch, but they are driving their power from the theocracy. So there can be blend in both the things, right?
Can we say Vatican City is a theocracy principle?
Yeah, Vatican City you can say. Okay, so very good. So Vatican City can be there. यहाँ तक समझ में आया? That's why we talks about the democracy. That's why we promote the democracy, right?
Sir, sir, when I said case by case basis, I was referring to Middle East because there are monarchy in those areas, and if you compare the democratic rule in Indian subcontinent or in some of the African countries, so the conditions of the monarchy in Middle East is better than these areas. So that is why I said ki in some cases maybe monarchy is better from democracy.
Because you're talking about
Prosperity-wise.
economic aspect, you are covering only one aspect, that is economic aspect from the standard of living only. But it is not only the thing. If we talk about the liberty and equality, that is not there. The female separation is there, right? Right to freedom is not there. Social justice is not there, right? A normal person cannot become the king as it can be in democracy, right? So just only economic aspect is not only the single aspect of a human being. Rather than it also includes the social, political aspect is there. He can realize his potential. The potential cannot be realized, right? There is no fundamental right is there. The person anytime, any day, the king can work according to his will, right? So not only economic aspect, right? इसलिए मैं कह रहा था कि इसलिए better नहीं है वो, क्योंकि आप economic aspect से ठीक है, but there is separation of women, ask their plight, so it is not a good, right? So that's why democracy is prospering right now, right? The next revolution is coming from which parts of the nation, whether there is a monarchy or there is a theocracy, वहीं से आपको revolutions मिलेंगे, right? डेमोक्रेसी में आपको रिवोल्यूशन नहीं मिलेंगे, वहां प्रोटेस्ट मिलेंगे आपको against the government, not against the state, right?
Sir, the opposite is also happening. For example, recently, I think in Nepal, some of the rebellions have started to go back to monarchy rule from democracy rule.
नहीं वो डेमोक्रेटिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से ही वो थियोक्रेसी की बात कर रहे हैं, बट प्रेफरली दे आर टॉकिंग द डेमोक्रेसी इन अ सर्टेन ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल. अभी हम उस पर जजमेंट नहीं कर सकते, देयर इज अ सर्टेन ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल, तो अभी एंड रिजल्ट नहीं है, राइट? देयर कैन बी नॉट ए बिग डील, बट हम एक एक्सेप्शनल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बात नहीं करेंगे, हम लार्जर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बात करेंगे, राइट? ठीक है, तो डेमोक्रेसी इसलिए प्रेफर किया जाता है. देन कम्स टू द सिटीजंस इज वेरी मच इंपोर्टेंट. That's why citizens' rights are very much important, because democracy is our central figure. In democracy, citizens are the centric, and their fundamental rights are protected in the democratic nations, right? So that's why our constitution includes the fundamental rights very much, very important point of view, right? They cannot be protected, they cannot be curtailed, they need to be protected, right? Now टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्टेट को कौन गवर्न करेगा, राइट? गवर्न करने के लिए क्या होगा? एक गवर्नेंस होगा, गवर्नमेंट होगा. गवर्न करने के लिए क्या होगा? गवर्नमेंट होगा, राइट? अब इन गवर्नमेंट में क्या हो सकता है? वो लेवल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट हो सकता है, किस लेवल पे? सेंट्रल लेवल पे हो सकता है, स्टेट लेवल पे हो सकता है, जिसे हम क्या बोलते थे? फेडरलिज्म बोलते थे, राइट? फेडरलिज्म बोलते हैं कि व्हेन देयर इज अ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ पावर among the organs of the government, then it is known as the federalism. when there is a separation of power among different organs of government, right? Organs of government क्या है? Legislative, executive and judiciaries. Then it is known as the separation of power. Why? It maintains the check and balance. Why it is very much important, check and balance? Because these three organs are working for the betterment of people, right? That's why a state should be a कैसा state होना चाहिए? Their state should be a welfare state, right? आपने वो फन टर्म सुना होगा, इंडिया इज अ वेलफेयर स्टेट इज है या नहीं है, इंडिया इज अ वेलफेयर स्टेट और नॉट, राइट? Because state can be welfare state only when it work for the betterment of the peoples. And these three organs, legislative, executive and judiciaries, are basically performing their actions for the betterment of people, well-being of the people, right? That's why it is very much important that check and balance is maintained among them, so that the rights of the people are not compromised, not curtailed, right? यहाँ तक समझ में आया? यहाँ तक किसी को इश्यू आ रहा है? बेसिक कंसेप्ट डेवलप हो रहे हैं सभी के, राइट? एंड स्टेट आल्सो हैविंग द सर्टेन टेरिटरीज, उसकी बाउंड्रीज भी होंगी. इट इज वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट कि टेरिटरीज इज आल्सो द पार्ट ऑफ द स्टेट. दैट्स व्हाई अगर आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन देखेंगे तो ये सारी चीजें आपको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में मिल जाएंगी, राइट? सो दीज थिंग्स आर परफॉर्म्ड for the betterment of the people. No one curtail the freedom of the people, no one curtail the rights of the people. That's why there should be a rule book, right? If something is not written, then, and it is the new nation, there are chances that rule can be compromised, rule can be misused, because they are not written. If something is written, कुछ चीज लिखी हुई है, तो आप उसको रीड अच्छे से कर सकते हैं, इंटरप्रेट अच्छे से कर सकते हैं. इन केस कोई इशू आता है तो आप क्या कर सकते हैं? रूल बुक को फॉलो कर सकते हैं. दैट्स व्हाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज फ्रेम्ड, राइट? That's why there is a book called the Constitution. Constitution will talk about everything for the betterment of people. Though people are the supreme, right? Though state having the sovereignties, right? Sovereignty in the sense that they can make the rules for their own will. State is sovereign, but this sovereignty is the popular sovereignty. In the sense, people are ultimately sovereign, right? Who are the sovereign democracy? People are the sovereign. Ultimately, power lies with the people, right? Who says it? Constitution says it. Why? Because Constitution protects the right of the people. क्योंकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज लॉ बुक है, एक रूल बुक है, दैट शोज द हाउ ए नेशन शुड बी, हाउ गवर्नमेंट शुड बी, व्हाट इज द फंक्शन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, हाउ द गवर्नमेंट, द पावर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. It also gives the power of the government, it also limits the government, right? How the government will function, how the governments will be taken place, right? So उसके लिए एक बुक बना दी है, वो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आपका, right? So as such, constitution is not supreme. If someone is asked you who is supreme, either constitution or people, then your answer should be people. When the question is there who is supreme, constitution or parliament, then your answer should be the constitution, right? That's why constitution limit the parliament, or if I say limit the legislatures, or you can say it also limit the executive, or also limit the judiciaries. So it's limit all the organs of the government just because he wants to protect the right of the people, right? The constitution is for the people, right? The constitution is for the people, and these all the organs of the government only for the people. That's why our constitution starts with the we the people of India, right? Right? It does not say that parliament or constitution assembly adopt this constitution itself, right? The source of power, everything's constitution itself coming from the people. So who is the supreme? It is the people only, right? So ये हमारा एक बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है इस पूरे टॉपिक की, राइट। यहाँ तक किसी को कोई इश्यूज है तो बताइए। आपको ऑलरेडी जो नॉलेज था मैंने बस उसको कनेक्ट किया है उसको, क्योंकि आपका आंसर तभी एक अच्छा आंसर हो सकता है जब आपको ये सब बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है टॉपिक की। तो आप क्या है कि क्वेश्चन को अच्छे से अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे, ब्रेक डाउन करेंगे, और जो आंसर भी लिखेंगे उसमें एक फंडामेंटल एरर नहीं करेंगे आप, राइट। नाउ कम्स टू द आवर सिलेबस। ठीक, सबको सिलेबस दिख रहा है अभी?
यस सर।
राइट, वेरी गुड। That's why our first topic is Indian Constitution. So someone can ask you, what is the Constitution? So Constitution is a rule book कि how a nation, how a state, which talks about कि nature of the government, nature of the state. It also gives the right to the people for their realization of their potentials. It also talks about the distribution of power. Right? So ये Constitution है हमारा, ये Constitution का function है. Then second topic is historical underpinnings. In the sense कि what are the historical perspective which frame our Indian Constitution, right? कि क्या historical aspect है, क्या historical evolution of Indian Constitution है with respect to the past scenario, right? If something is there, it should be evolution, right? Evolution is talks about something is changing with respect to the times, right? So evolution is a good perspective of any document. So if the constitution is not evolutionary in the sense, it is static. So constitution को कैसा होना चाहिए? हमेशा evolutionary होना चाहिए, because with the passage over time, need of the societies, changing dynamics of the society or people's aspiration, तो constitution भी कैसा होना चाहिए? Evolutionary होना चाहिए. So evolutionary किस aspect हम बात करेंगे? Past, present and future aspect में, right? No features talking about के nature of हमारे constitution के basic features क्या है, whether it is sovereign है या नहीं है, हमारे state socialist है या secular है या नहीं है, यहाँ पे separation of power किस तरीके से है, distribution of power किस तरीके से है, तो हमारे जो basic features है, written constitution है या नहीं है हमारा, वो हमारे basic features के बाद बात करेंगे वहाँ पे. Then comes to the amendment part. Why amendment is important? Can you tell me? Amendment is a good or bad thing?
Good thing.
What?
It needed for the evolution.
Very good. It is an evolution for what?
Evolution of the constitution, the articles.
Evolution as per the need and requirement of the society or people aspirations, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Not for the constitution. The evolution is the evolution of the constitution, but why this evolution is taking place? ये evolution हो किस लिए रहा है? क्यों amendment हम कर रहे हैं? Government makes an amendment. किस लिए government amendment करती है? Can you tell me what is the welfare of the people? Very good. Recent amendment किसी को याद है अभी क्या है recent amendment act? Which number?
106.
Very good. 106. It is related to the
women reservation.
right. One third reservation for the women, right? In Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and the NCT, right? For how many years? It is for 15 years, right? कब से start होगा? Anyone knows it? When it will start?
After the results of 2021 census is published.
Okay, when the next census will be published, right? 2026 is not mentioned. It is said that when the next census will be published, जो नया census आएगा उसके हिसाब से हो जाएगा, right? So amendment, amendment क्यों होता है? Because it based on the society need क्या है उस समय पे, people's के aspirations क्या है, for the betterment of the peoples, right? So 106 reservation of women, because women has not getting their rights in the legislature. If you talk about nearly 14 to 15% women are already there, right? So their plights, their understanding, their emotions, right? तो gender inequalities maintain है, in political dimension भी है, economic dimensions में भी है, right? That's why amendment is very much important, right? So who can make the amendment? Parliament or state?
Parliament.
State can make amendment?
No, sir.
Very good. State government cannot make the amendment. Only Parliament has the right to make the amendment, right? But this amendment, Parliament can make the amendment because it is the Legislature, right? Because law making power is lies with the parliament, right? But can it be make amendment as on his desire, on his wishes? जैसा चाहे वैसा amendment कर सकते हैं क्या वो? नहीं
No,
कर
sir, it will be checked and balanced by the judiciary to check the.
Right. It is subject to the judicial review, right? If we talk about that, it is subject to the judicial review, right? Because as we discussed, the basic structure should not be disturbed. And basic structure is what is the basic structure, right? Though it is not defined anywhere, but basic structure आप देखोगे, अगर आप read out करोगे, there it will have two things, basic structure especially. First thing, it is protecting the constitutional basic principles, right? जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स होंगे, जो ईथोस हैं जो डेमोक्रेसीज के, उस वो होंगे. सेकेंडली इट विल आल्सो यहाँ पे पीपल्स के राइट प्रोटेक्टेड हो जाए. That are very much important for the people's aspirations. ये दोनों ही चीजों को अगर आप देखोगे तो यही आपके सारे बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर के पार्ट होंगे. Now talking about the significant provisions and basic structures of the constitutions, right? तो आप देखिए सिलेबस में भी एक तरीके से इवोल्यूशन है, कोई भी एक रैंडम चीज नहीं आ गई है कहीं से भी. There is a flow within the syllabus itself. Is first talking about the Indian Constitution because it is the rule book which is working basically for the betterment of the people, because in democracy peoples are the centric, right? Then from the historical perspective, he's talking about how the constitution evolved itself. Then evolution, right? Talking about the evolution. Then is talking about the basic features of the constitutions. Basic features kya hai? Then it is talking about the amendment, because amendment also shows the evolution, right? Based on the requirement of the society and people's aspirations. Now significant provisions kya hai? And then significant provision के बाद ही उन्होंने basic structure term use किया, right? Understood? यहाँ तक सबको क्लियर है? किसी को भी डाउट? नाउ ठीक है, अभी हम अपना एक फर्स्ट टॉपिक है, हम टॉपिक के वाइज जाएंगे, टॉपिक के अकॉर्डिंग हम सारे क्वेश्चंस करेंगे, राइट? सो नाउ फर्स्ट टॉपिक इज अवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. सबको समझ में आ गया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? व्हाट इज द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? Constitution is a rule book, right? Constitution is a rule book of a state which prescribe the norms for the government, for the peoples, so that the rights of the peoples are protected. The peoples के right of protect हो, and democratic जो ethos and principles हैं, they are also protected, right? तो इसके significance क्या है? The examiner can ask what is the significance of the constitutions? Why constitution is important? Right? Now can you answer this question right now? जब examiner अगर question पूछेगा कि why constitution is important or what is the constitution, can you write right now? आप लिख सकते हैं उसको?
Yes, sir.
वेरी गुड. क्योंकि हम सब ऐसी स्टडी करेंगे क्वेश्चन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. अगर एग्जाम मतलब किस किस डायमेंशन पे क्वेश्चन बनाएगा और किस किस डायमेंशन में अपने आंसर्स राइट डाउन कर सकते हैं, राइट? नाउ द सेकंड क्वेश्चन कैन बी एग्जामिनर कैन फ्रेम फ्रॉम द हिस्टोरिकल अंडरपिनिंग्स, राइट? तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो इंडिया का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, इफ आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो बेसिकली इट इज द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, राइट? जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो कहाँ से, क्या हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव है, किस तरीके से इवॉल्व होता है हिस्टोरिकल एस्पेक्ट्स में, पास्ट में? आप बता सकते हैं कि किस कहाँ से इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन फ्रेम हुआ है, कहाँ से हमने हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से लिया, इंडिया के हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से, राइट?
गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935.
वेरी गुड. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935. So what are the provisions of the government of India Act 1935? जो पास्ट में चीजें थी, they are still the part of
Sir,
the
governor.
post of
Office of
governor.
governor.
Okay, very good. And
Then the UPSC, sorry, the civil services administrative department.
ठीक है, if I talk about the federal and provincial and Joint Public Service Commission, right? Right.
And emergency also.
Okay, emergency provisions, not emergency, emergency provisions. Very good. What else? कोई और भी participate करिए इसमें?
Office of Governor.
Sir,
The bicameralism.
What?
Bicameralism.
Very good, very good.
The two houses.
Bicameral, very good. Bicameralism, right? It is the House of People and Rajya Sabha, right?
Sir, establishment of Supreme Court.
Very good. Establishment of Supreme Court. What it उसको उस समय पे क्या बोलते थे? किसी को पता है?
Federal Court.
Very good. Federal Court. तो आप हमेशा Federal Court term use करिए, then you can correlate with the Supreme Court of the current scenario. Very good. What else? There is a very much important thing was there.
cabinet
जो
system.
आप क्या कह रहे हैं आप?
Cabinet system.
Not exactly the cabinet system. Separation of power, right? All India Federation. They were talking about the All India Federation. In there is separation of power among the central, provincial, and the princely state. Though princely state is not there, but there is a separation of power among the central and province, which was later adopted under the Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution. Right? ठीक है, ये पता था सबको ना?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Anyone knows communal about?
Yes.
1932 reservation for the scheduled caste, right? Right. It was later given the reservation for the Gandhi and Ambedkar. There was a pact, right? It was also came into the picture in the Government of India 1935, right? So still that it is still prevalent right now, right? So हमने constitution के बाद reservation adopt किया था, right? It is the affirmative action of the government, right? Affirmative action of the government for their better representations. ठीक है, ये तो हमारा ये हो गया फाइन. Government of India 1935. What else?
Sir, it is also derived different sources of other constitutions.
Fine.
So,
first, let's talk about Office of Care, right? Right. So in 1858, after the Act of Good Governance, is passed in 1858, right? After the company rule was ended, then Act of Good Governance was passed in 1858. So Queen rule है वो establish हो गया था. Then the Office of Accountant General was created. Office of Accountant General was established, right, in 1858. So which was later known as the CAG under the Article 148 of the Indian Constitution. तो आप जब CAG के बारे में आप पढ़ेंगे तो ये आपको हेडिंग मिल जाएगा, राइट? तो जो ऑफिस ऑफ CAG है वो भी पास्ट में आ रही है, ड्राइव हो रहा है वहां से, राइट? Provisions related to the budgets, right? Budget first time introduced in 1860s, right? Which was later under the 1891, 1909 and 1919 वो फिर voted and discussion start हो गया था उसमें in certain aspect of the budgets, but it was also from the past scenario, right? And bicameralism was, when was it started? Bicameralism, can you please tell me?
1909 or 1909.
1919, right? Right. The bicameralism was started in 1919. 1909 was famous for the separate electorate, right? And along with it, direct election was also introduced in the 1919. It was not the direct election in a major aspect, but certain people can directly elect. The universal franchises was not there, but certain group of people can directly elect. They can vote direct. Right? Can you tell me the post of speaker and deputy speaker? Was it earlier or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. In 1921, post of speaker and deputy speaker was there. It was carried forward after the independence also. Right. Indian Council Act 1861. It talks about. Can you tell me? किसके बारे में बात करता है ये? Very good. It's talk about the portfolio system. Very good. It is also there right now. What else? Ordinance making power of the governor. Right. With validity of 6 months. Right. It is also right now the president at the central level and the governor is the state level having the ordinance making power, right? On the advice of the council of minister. The ordinance making power will also carried forward. Anything else?
Decentralization of power.
Okay, that will be there in emergency provisions.
Sir, local self-government.
Very good.
Lord Ripon.
Local self-government. Lord Ripon. Right? Ripon's time during the 1882. Very good. What else?
Sir, said I don't know if it is relevant or not, but the sedition charges are still, I think, in Constitution.
Okay, citizen charge, you can mention a certain laws. It will be under the laws because we are discussing mainly about the acts, right? It will be under the laws. Very good, right? So you can mention about the 1860, those laws were passed. Very good. What else it can be? You are basically talking about the colonial, right? What we discussed, it was only colonial regulation act, right? But यहाँ तक हम अपने आप को लिमिट नहीं करेंगे ना. We have to create the difference among the other students. तो हमने जो भी डिस्कस किया अभी तक वो केवल कॉलोनियल रेगुलेशन एक्ट तक ही लिमिटेड थे हम. और क्या क्या आ सकता है हिस्टोरिकल अंडरपिनिंग्स में? ये तो हमारा एक पॉइंट हो गया, उसके अंदर हमारे सब पॉइंट्स हो गए वो. और क्या क्या जो
federal supremacy, for example, in colonial rule, the important portfolios were held by the central.
No, think in other aspect also.
Okay.
जो हमारे फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल्स थे फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस, फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल्स फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस, उसने भी तो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को फ्रेम किया है ना. डिमांड फॉर स्वराज, right? The demand for Swaraj, which was started in Calcutta session and till Lahore session, under the dominant state to complete freedom, right? So India is now sovereign state, na? Right. So the freedom struggle है, जो हमारे जो freedom fighters हैं, उनके भी तो movements हैं, जिन्होंने भी तो constitution को frame किया है, उनके ethos है, उनके principles हैं, वो भी तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के पार्ट है. जो सोवरेन पावर है वो कहाँ से आ रही है? इंडिया इज अ सोवरेन स्टेट. इट इज अ डिमांड ऑफ आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल फॉर फादर्स, राइट? तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के जो इथोस या प्रिंसिपल्स वो भी तो यहाँ से आ रहे हैं, राइट? नेहरू रिपोर्ट.
Sir, a request. Can you please change the thickness of the pen because?
Sure. Okay. Now it is fine. अभी सही है?
Yes, sir. Even a little bit thicker will be good.
Okay. I think it is fine now.
Yes, sir.
Nehru report, right? there are certain provisions within the Nehru report which later became the part of the constitutions. Can you tell me?
Sir, objective resolution.
Very good. Objective resolutions, which was later introduced by the Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, but this Nehru report is related to his father, right?
Motilal Nehru.
Right? Objective.
Sir, fundamental rights.
Very good. Fundamental rights. Very good. And
Special reservation for minorities.
very good. Representation, not the reservation. You can say representation. That will be a better word. Very good. What else?
So no state religion, secularity.
Pardon me, please repeat.
Sir, no state religion.
Very good. Secular form of the government. Very good.
Federal form of the government.
Very good. Federal form of government with residual powers with the center, right? It is still there right now, right? Under the Schedule 7. Right? There is a union list. There is a state list. Residual power lies with the center, right? It was under the Nehru report. Very good. There is also one provision was there. Provision says would be created along linguistic lines, right? Right. In Nehru report, there was a provision that the provinces हैं create किए जाएंगे based on the linguistic lines, right? Which was later adopted under which committee? किस committee recommend किया था?
SK Dhar. No.
Very good. SK Dhar committee. Very good. SK Dhar committee. और कौन सा एक्ट पास किया गया था?
State Reorganization Act 1956.
वेरी गुड. तो स्टेट रिओर्गनाइजेशन एक्ट 1956 जो पास किया गया था उसमें ये गया था. देन अलोंग विद कराची सेशन में जो अडॉप्शन किए गए थे कराची सेशन में, दैट इज रिलेटेड टू द फंडामेंटल राइट्स एंड अलोंग विद द नेशनल इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग. हरिपुर सेशन में जो कुछ सेगमेंट हुए थे, दैट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट द नेशनल प्लानिंग कमेटी which was later planning commission, now is Niti Aayog, right? What else it can be? One more point you can add on. बताइए.
Sir, what was the last point? Can you repeat the Haripura section?
जो हरिपुर सेशन हुआ था वहां पे एक रेजोल्यूशन पास किया गया था that was related to the national planning committees, right? The national planning committee should be set up. So जो national planning committee है that was later known as the planning commission. वो exactly नहीं था but it was similar to that planning commission. So एक plan कर सके planning commission हो that can plan the policies for the nation. तो on the basis of जो policies क्या होना चाहिए, हमारी economic policies क्या होना चाहिए, nation की क्या policies होना चाहिए. So which was later on the similar line was the planning commission, right? तो planning commission को right now replace करके नीति आयोग बनाया गया है, right? One more term can be related to the secularism. It is a very much important term, right? You can mention it earlier. इस point को आप पहले भी लिख सकते थे, secularism, right? क्योंकि जो secularism का जो इंडियन concept है वो आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा, right? किसी भी एक्ट में नहीं मिलेगा आपको, किसी नेशन में नहीं मिलेगा. तो जो सेकुलरिज्म है, where it is mentioned in Indian Constitution? Can you please tell me?
Preamble.
Very good. Was it earlier part of the preamble of Constitution?
No, sir. In 1976 it was added.
Very good. 42 Amendment 1976. It was become the part of the Indian Constitution. जो सेकुलरिज्म का जो कंसेप्ट है, अगर हम बात करें, that is the integral, that is the basic structure of the Constitution. जो हमारे जो Constitution में इन्वॉल्व है, so we didn't become the secular only after the 42 Amendment 1976. rather than it was the inculcate part of the India, right? It was the inculcate part of the India, because these were the socio-religious values of India, right? So you can frame one more heading: the socio-religious values also framed the Indian constitutions, right? Those socio-religious values also reflected in the Indian constitution in the form of secularism, right? Certain provisions of the constitution, whether it is related to the equality or liberty, they also reflected in the constitutions, because it was the part of the social religious values of the India, right? Concept of secularism, because we talk about the Vasudev Kutumbakam, right?
Sir, how it is related to historical underpinnings?
Because in India we accept whatever your religious values are there. Buddhism prosper in India, right? It evolved in the land of India. Sikhism also evolved in India. Jainism also evolved in India. Even the Charvak, who was atheist, also prosper in India, right? So along with other Jewish communities also came here, Parsi community came here, we all welcome there, right? So we inculcate all these values. Even the Vasudev Kutumbakam is also our religious values, right? It is mentioned in the our scriptures also there, right? So there is Upanishad is there. It is mentioned in Vasudev Kutumbakam. So in the sense that all world is a family. So it is our social religious values. So that's why it was inculcated in our constitution. So
Sir,
even
can you mention that the communal violence also influenced the constitution maker to add secularism in constitution?
no, the question is different right now, right? Question is related talking about the historical underpinnings of the Indian constitution. So we cannot mention the violence, we cannot mention the negative part of it here, right? Right? अगर वो critically evaluate की बात कर रहे हैं, then you have to mention there. He is talking about which are the historical underpinnings that leads to the framework of the Indian constitution, right? There is always negative side of everything, right? But currently the topic is different. Secular is there, but still discrimination is there. Equality is there, but there is a still manifested inequalities also there, right? उस एस्पेक्ट में मैं बात करता हूँ, ठीक है? Now the question examiner can ask, यहाँ तक तो जो हमारे historical underpinning से कोई question आएगा, can you write right now?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, एक बार बता दीजिए किसी को डाउट है किसी भी वे का, किसी भी तरीके से, या कुछ चीज समझ में नहीं आई हो, बताइए आप. फाइन. स्पीड हमारा सही है कि थोड़ा फास्ट हूं मैं या थोड़ा स्लो चलूं, आप बताइए. ठीक है. नाउ सेकंड क्वेश्चन, सेकंड टॉपिक इज रिलेटेड टू अवर प्रीएम्बल, क्योंकि जो नेचर ऑफ गवर्नमेंट है, एवोल्यूशन है, वो दैट वी विल डिस्कस अंडर द प्रीएम्बल. सो एवरीवन हैव रीड द प्रीएम्बल और नॉट? किसी को है कि मतलब प्रीएम्बल नहीं पता हो इंडिया का? I have preamble for you. So what the question can be framed by the examiner with related to the preamble? ठीक है. What is the significance of the preamble? Significance of the preamble. A simple question can ask by the examiner, what is the significance of the preamble? Second question he can frame, he can frame significance or relevance of the preamble. Is it amendable or not? Or he can frame, does it reflect the vision and view of framer of constitution? So in 3 or 4 dimensions, the examiner can frame the questions. So first, the significance preamble का क्या है, क्या क्या उसके provisions हैं, क्यों important है, why it is important for. So can you tell me what is the preamble?
Preface of constitution.
Okay, very layman terms, you can call it preface of the constitution.
Sir, it is also a summary which holds the ideals and the vision of the constitution and the country.
Very good. So you should have an introduction so that you can directly write. It embodies, or it has the basic philosophy and fundamental values of Indian constitutions, right? The basic philosophy of fundamental values जो Indian constitution का, they are reflected in the preamble, right? So vision and philosophy of preamble की क्या है बताइए आप मुझे. What is the vision and philosophy of preamble?
Sir, भाई वो socialist, sovereign, democratic, liberty, then justice, equality.
Always जब आप आंसर राइट करें तो एक हेडिंग्स बना लीजिए कि उस हेडिंग्स में क्या फायदा रहता है कि आप अच्छी तरीके से लिख भी सकते हैं और मार्क्स भी ज्यादा फेच करेंगे, राइट? सो ऑलवेज मेक ए हेडिंग एंड देन उसको फिर आप उसको सेग्रीगेट करिए अपने आंसर्स को, राइट? फर्स्ट वी कैन मेक द हेडिंग जस्ट लाइक द सोर्स ऑफ पावर, राइट? Does preamble mention what is the source of power?
Yes, sir, the people.
Yes, it's the people.
Right. We the people of India. As I said, in democracy, people are supreme. People are supreme. That's why the first part of the constitution starts from the people itself. The constitution is not imposed by any other person, whether it is inside India or outside India. It is the wish of the people. That is the another thing of the debate. Criticism hai कि there were limited numbers of peoples in the Constitutional Assembly, right? All were not discussed. Even the Indian citizens were not well literate or well understanding of the Constitution. The language is used is very hard, right? That is the another point of debate. But what is there? It having the source of power. The power is driving from the people itself. So preamble mention the source of power, right? Having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a, right? The source of power is mentioned be the people of India as the source of the power of the preamble, right? Secondly, it mentioned the nature and form of government, right? The preamble is also mentioning about the nature and form of the government. So what is the nature and form of the government? What is saying?
Sovereign, socialist, secular,
and democratic republic, right? It is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic, right? So if you understand these terms, then you will realize that the constitution है, उसके जो provisions है, they are fulfilling these provisions, right? Sovereign is talking about the liberty or take power of taking the decisions, right? The sovereignty can have in two forms, either in the state or either with the people, right? But if you're talking about the democratic government, if you're talking about the democracy, then sovereignty lies with the people, right? Then so why it is also known as the popular sovereignties, right? So who is the supreme? People are supreme, right? So India is sovereign. India is a sovereign state. That is said that India is a sovereign state in the sense that Parliament can frame the laws. Why Parliament can frame the law? Because Parliament represents the will of the people. Because जो Parliament में जो है, they are directly or indirectly elected by the people. In the House of People, they are directly elected. In the Rajya Sabha, they are indirectly elected, upper house, right? So they represent the will of the people. It is a form of the indirect democracies. Socialist was not earlier the part of the constitution, but later it was added, right? So socialist, are we socialist? The question can be framed one more. is India is a socialist nation right now? Is India a socialist nation? Tell me.
To some extent, yes.
Yes, very good. So the examiner can also ask if, either he can ask which of the provisions of the preamble that do not reflect in current scenario, or they are protected in a current scenario or not, right? So क्या वो जो provisions हैं preamble के, क्या वो current scenario में अभी भी apply होते हैं या नहीं होते हैं, इस तरीके से पूछ सकता है वो, right? So आप टोन समझिए, उस क्वेश्चन का टोन क्या है, किस वे में है, तो उसके बेसिस पे आप आंसर लिखने की कोशिश करिए, राइट? तो सोशलिस्ट, yes, up to a certain extent, we are socialist nations, but you have to mention about the LPG reform in the 1992, right? So most of the sectors were open for the private sectors also. Their economy were also open. So state did not have complete control, or state did not have major control of the economies, because in socialist society, socialist state is the have the upper hand, right? Most of the things are done by the state, but still currently we are having the welfare state. So you can justify your argument कि why we are the socialist right now. आप argument justify कर सकते हैं because based on the welfare scheme of the government. अगर आप सोशल सेक्टर की बात करेंगे, सोशल सेक्टर्स में क्या क्या आता है, हेल्थ है आपका, एजुकेशन है, तो जो भी आप जो सर्विसेज हैं गवर्नमेंट की, द पोर्शन ऑफ द एक्सपेंडिचर यहाँ पे बढ़ भी रहा है, गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम्स एंड प्रोग्राम्स हैं, वल्नरेबल सेक्शन और वीकर सेक्शंस के लिए हैं, तो गवर्नमेंट इज टेकिंग द पॉजिटिव एक्शंस फॉर देयर अपलिफ्टमेंट. तो इस तरीके से स्टिल वी आर द सोशलिस्ट. इवन जो पीएसयू का जो कल्चर है, स्टिल वी आर हैविंग द पीएसयूज, नेशनलाइजेशन ऑफ द बैंक्स, currently national banks is there, that is also shows the socialist pattern. Even certain industries are reserved by the state also there, right? तो कुछ सेक्टर्स हैं जो completely reserved for the state, एक सोशलिस्ट पैटर्न को शो करती है, बट मेजॉरिटी इन आस्पेक्ट वी आर नॉट सोशलिस्ट. इन मेजर पोर्शन में नहीं है, बिकॉज वी हैव टेकन 2 रिफॉर्म्स, एलपीजी रिफॉर्म्स 1992 एंड देन वाजपेयी गवर्नमेंट टाइम्स, राइट? So we are not socialist right now. Even we can say we are tilted towards the capitalism. Earlier we were the mixed economy, but currently we are tilted towards the capitalism, right? So you can justify your both the argument, but you don't have to take any single step, or एक single stand नहीं लेना है आपको, then your answer will be wrong. But ultimately if you take the one stand, then you can mention tilted towards the capitalism because of our LPG reforms. Even अभी भी हमारा जो गवर्नमेंट की इनिशिएटिव्स हैं डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट के right now, that is also related to the tilted toward the capitalism, right? So private institution health sectors में भी काफी prosper कर रहे हैं, education sectors में भी काफी prosper कर रहे हैं. Even disinvestment is also taking place within the PSU also, right? कुछ sectors में 50% से भी नीचे की भी बात वो कर रहे हैं, right? Fine. Sovereign we have discussed, socialist we have discussed. Now comes to the secular aspect, right? यहाँ तक किसी को कोई डाउट है, बताइए आप. क्या हुआ, किस मतलब समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, या फिर मतलब कुछ इंट्रोस्पेक्शन कर रहे हैं आप सब लोग?
Yes sir, clear sir.
स्पीड इज गुड, बताइए आप, या फिर थोड़ा स्लो करूं मैं, या फिर मेरा लैंग्वेज समझ में नहीं आ रहा, बताइए आप क्लियरली.
No sir, fine.
ठीक है सर.
बिकॉज हम बिगिनिंग से नहीं पढ़ा सकते आपको, उसका रीजन ये है कि फिर टाइम भी कंज्यूम होगा. मेरा पर्पस सिर्फ ये है कि जो आपको पता है उसको इंटरलिंक करना है, एंड देन एग्जाम में क्या आंसर लिखना है उसके पर्सपेक्टिव से आपको कंटेंट देना है. सो वन क्वेश्चन कैन बी आस्क्ड, इज इंडिया ए सेक्युलर स्टेट? Secondly, second question can be framed like secularism is inbuilt ethos or ideals of Indian society, right? ये थोड़ा अगर उसको स्टिल्ड क्वेश्चन बनाना है तो बना देगा. The third question can be, how is India's secularism is different from Western notion या concept, Western concept of secularism, right? Or he can compare it with the Western. If you're talking about the Western, then it is basically the French, right? Or France, right? फ्रेंच के सेकुलरिज्म से इंडिया का सेकुलरिज्म किस तरीके से डिफरेंट है, राइट? Fine. So these mainly 4 dimensions the examiner can frame the questions related to the secularism, right? अब कभी भी PYQ देख लीजिए, कहीं से भी देख लीजिए, और फिर नेक्स्ट अगर वो क्वेश्चन भी अगर सेकुलरिज्म में बनाएंगे वो इन्हीं डायमेंशन में बनाएंगे वो, राइट? सो हम ये क्वेश्चन भी सॉल्व कर सकते हैं. नाउ सो फर्स्ट एड्रेस दिस क्वेश्चन, इज इंडिया सेकुलर स्टेट? अगर वो डायरेक्टली आपको ओपिनियन पूछ रहा है तो टेल मी.
Yes, sir. Article 25 to 28 talks about religious freedom.
ओके फाइन.
सर यहाँ पर भी भाई मतलब आर्गुमेंट्स फॉर एंड अगेंस्ट हो सकता है. I was talking about the for कि is India is secular India is secular state.
Very good. What else?
One of the
Sir,
argument
preamble
being
also.
article.
हाँ जी बताइए.
Yes, sir. Preamble also mention about secularity of Indian society.
Very good. So first you mentioned that secularism is, the term secularism is mentioned in India's constitution or our constitution, right? So yes, India is a secular state, right? तो फर्स्ट जो आर्गुमेंट है उसको आप सिंपल वे में इंट्रोडक्शन में इसको मेंशन कर दीजिए, राइट? इस मेंशन व्हाट एल्स सेकंड आर्गुमेंट कैन बी?
A uniform civil code.
It is not implement right now, so it is a DPSP only which is talking about the UCC article 44, but UCC having the both ages. Someone can say that is a secularism, but someone say it is not the implementing the secularism, right? So UCC you can write it, but it is not a much valid argument, right? What else can be?
So India is not assigned to any specific religion like Islamic state or Hindu state.
Very good. So in India states does not, as per the constitution, Indian state does not possess any religion, right? Rather it treat every religion equally, right? अब आपने क्या ये स्टेटमेंट दे दिया, अब आपको ये स्टेटमेंट जस्टिफाई करना पड़ेगा. There is no religion of state, that is fine, and treat everyone equally, right? अब आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? You have to justify your argument. What can be the justification of this?
Sir, principal distance.
क्या कहा आपने? Repeat it.
Sir, principal distance from religion.
ठीक है. What else can be? आप कोई और पॉइंट बता रहे थे, कोई आप बताइए.
Sir, article 25 to 28 can be argument for this.
ठीक है. The state provides the religious freedom to group of peoples, ठीक है, at individual level and collective level, right? Right? Individual collective level दोनों पे है. Very good. What else can be argument? Article 14 itself says equality before law, equal protection of law. In the sense, it does not discriminate on any person based on the sex, gender, and religion is also there, no? Right? Article 15 same age, Article 16 same age. No one can be discriminated based on the religion, whether it is the admission of the education institute or equality of opportunities, right, in the economic spheres, right? That is also shows the secularism. Na? State is treating everyone equal. Along with, you can justify your argument with your examples also, right? With examples के साथ भी आप कर सकते हैं. For example, government provides facilitations for Hajj subsidies, and also for the Amarnath Yatra, right? In the sense, Indian state is treating every religion equally. State is not discriminating and favoring any particular religion, right? But Indian federalism, Indian secularism is not limited to this, right? जो इंडिया का सेकुलरिज्म है वो यहाँ तक लिमिटेड नहीं है, because in Western secularism, religion has no state. State has no religion. Sorry, state has no religion, which is also known as the negative concept of secularism. In the sense कि वेस्टर्न नेशन में, फॉर एग्जांपल स्पेशली फ्रांस, क्योंकि वहां से ही जो लिबर्टी इक्वलिटी की बात होती है वो फ्रांस से होती है, एंड वहां पे क्लर्जी क्लास मिलनी थी. तो इन आफ्टर द रिवॉल्यूशन इन फ्रेंच इट वाज डिसाइडेड दैट state does not have any religion. In the sense, state will not interfere in the affair of religion, or you can say church, right? And church or religious dominations will not interfere among the state. So it was the negative notion of secularism, negative concept of secularism. But Indian aspect, can state interfere? Tell me yes or no.
Yes, sir.
In certain aspect like public health, morality, it can interfere.
Very good. So India's notion of secularism is positive aspect, right? So India, यहाँ पे state और religion का ठीक है, the state does not have any religion. State का कोई religion नहीं है, but still state, Indian government, state can interfere within the religions, right? Within the religions for betterment of people, or to end the superstitious practices, or to end the orthodoxies, right? और इंटरफेयर किस बेसिस में हो सकता है? पॉजिटिव वे में हो सकता है इंटरफेरेंस आपका, और नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट में भी हो सकता है इंटरफेरेंस, राइट? नॉट ओनली पॉजिटिव भी हो सकता है. If the government is making the infrastructures or roads or facilities for the temples or the mosque, right? Even the Article 29 and 30 that is talking about the religious and linguistic minorities, and special rights are given to them, right? Under the Article 23. So it is the positive action, it is the affirmative actions. On the other hand, the government can bring the reform within the religion also. If there are distorted practices are there, they are undermining the people's freedoms, right? Or they are suppressing the people, or they are making the unreasonable discrimination, right? Then it can intervene. Can you give me the example for it?
Sati Pratha.
Very good. Sati Pratha. What else?
Black magic.
Okay, law related to the black magic. What else?
A triple talaq.
Very good. Triple talaq. What else? Can you mention an article?
Sir, untouchability. Article 17.
Very good. As someone mentioned also the Article 25. So it also gives the freedom for conscience, but it also restricts the people also, right? On the ground of moralities, right? If someone is doing the practices which is against the morality, then state can frame the laws, right? So in the secularism concept of India, the state has both in a positive aspect, negative aspect. They can take the positive step for the prosperity of the religions, and they can also intervene within the religion if there are any distorted practices there. They are promoting the orthodoxy or superstitions, right? And even the recent judgment related to Sabrimala temples, if you talk about the Sabrimala temples, right? The government allows the entry for the women, right? So Sahabano case was related to that. So that's in such aspect, the India's notion of secularism is different from the Western notion of secularism. So can you write the answer related to the secularism right now? I've given you all the points with the example. So while you write the answer, first define the terms. In body part, you make an argument with the headline, right? Then justify your argument, right? Then you can conclude or way forward. Now, can you write the question related to the secularism? Please tell me.
Yes, sir. Sir, another question. For example, the essential religious practices, can it come under the arguments that
That
state is allowing
yes,
certain?
state allows. That is also under the Article 25. The essential practices which are the integral part of any religion, that they are allowed by the state. It is a Supreme Court judgment, and they also made it also evolved what are the essential features of the religions with different Supreme Court judgment. सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट आए, उसमें डिफाइन किया, उसमें बताया गया है कि which are the essential religious practices. So it is the positive notions, ठीक है?
Sir,
Right.
what can be the counter argument that India is not secular?
A counter argument you can mention that currently the religious based politics are so promoted, right? The role of religion within the politics you can mention is there, but there are not much argument for it, because as you know, you can also mention one more point, I forgot it. You can mention that secularism itself is a part of the basic structure of constitution, right? If something is a basic structure of the constitution, how it cannot be, right? The secularism itself is a part of the Indian constitution. Can you mention the which judgment it told it was said?
SR Bomai case.
Very good. In SR Bomai case, 1994, it was mentioned that secularism is integral, is a basic structure of the constitution. Something is a basic structure of the constitution, and it is threatened, then Supreme Court will intervene, right? So people can directly reach to the constitution. Still, if you have to mention that up to a certain aspect, then you can mention the role of religion within the politics, role of religions within the politics. You can mention is within the politics, but state cannot make any discriminatory practices, because if they are doing, then people can reach to the Supreme Court itself, right? Then you can mention this point. Still, this point is not a valid argument, because in Representation of People Act 1951, it is clearly mentioned the ground of disqualification. It is a ground of disqualification if someone is promoting amenity among the certain groups, right? Amenity among the certain groups based on the religion, right? Or based on the caste. So it is also the ground of disqualification. So they can, in a tilted way, they can use those terms, the role of religion in the politics, but it is also not the valid argument, right? So in such scenario, they will not ask such question. If they ask, then you have to mention the increasing the role of the religion in the politics, or there are certain the constitution mentioned about the secularism aspect, but still they are the instances of the communal disharmony, riots are there within the societies there. There is a lack of toleration within the society, which are shown in the form of the violence, religion-based violence, right? But these are not the solid arguments, but you have to more tilted towards the toleration aspect, right? As a UPSC aspirant, because you are going to the part of state, right? So ये हमारे arguments आएंगे. Anything else? Please tell me. Fine. So secularism के आपके सारे questions frame बन जाएंगे ना, कि what is the secular, India is a secular state or not? You have mentioned with the Supreme Court judgment also. SR Boma you can mention about it, and articles you can mention India's positive and negative notions. India having the positive, and then you other Europe, Western nation of French, especially France, especially having the negative notion of this secularism. Then how is Indian secularism is different from the Western concept notion of secularism? That you can also write it, right? With respect to the French of France, you can also write it, right? So you can easily write it. And now comes to the right. We have covered India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic. Right? So, is India a democratic nation or not? The question is directly can be asked. If they will ask, is India a democratic nation or not? Nation critically evaluate. Right? If they frame the question, then we'll mention. They will necessarily mention critically evaluate. Just tell me. As I said, in democratic nation, the democracy is basically the people-centric, which basically focus on the three aspects: liberty, equality, fraternities. Right? Do basically talk about three aspects. That's why it will lead to the justice. Right? And democracy is just very much important that liberty, equality, and fraternity is promoted among the citizens or people. Then only it is a democracy. But in India's aspect, yes, we are democratic. How we are democratic? Because these fundamental rights are not available to any specific people. They are not any specific people. Okay, that certain class of people having special rights, special privilege, and other section of the people they're not having the special privilege. For example, right to equalities, right to freedoms, right? Religious freedoms is also given to all the people respect, right? So in that scenario, you can say that India is a democratic nation. Even right to vote, right to contest election is also shows the significance of the democracy. Even the election commissions is functioning. Anyone can contest the election. Even anyone can go for the any constitutional statutory post. If he having the ability, then he can also participate for the constitutional court. That is another thing. State or take them to that particular post or not, वो अलग बात है. But he having the ability. उस पे discrimination इस basis पे नहीं किया जाएगा कि special class का है, special group का है, right? But if the argument is there, कि he is talking about the critically evaluation, right? Just are we democratic in true sense? बताइए आप, ट्रू सेंस में हम डेमोक्रेटिक हैं क्या अभी भी?
Sir, during elections, there are certain sections of people who are voting for gas. So they are some of the people are illiterate to actually know to evaluate the candidate on the basis of their merit. And another thing is that most of the people are voting on the ground of parochial ground, for example, caste and religion. So this can be the counter arguments.
Fine, that is from the people perspective, but basically the argument can be framed in such a way that still election is limited to the certain group of people, because those who are rich, those who are in power, basically they are fighting for the elections and they are getting the seats in the parliament, right?
So dynasty politics and criminalization of politics.
Yes, dynastic politics is also there, but it will more into the argument for the issues in the elections. But we are mainly focusing right now with the democratic aspect, right? So a common people, though constitution provides the equality within the political dimensions, right? In the political dimension, but it is the rule. If something is a rule, it is not necessarily it will be reflected in the ground situation. In the ground situation is a different thing. A common people, though he can fight the election, but it is the very less chances that he can win. So it aspect, even during the time of election, many times we observe that certain groups of people, those who are poor people, they are not allowed to vote. There is also discrimination is there. There are few chances are there that rigging is there in the election. Though, so you cannot mention these things directly. Rather than you have to, आपको इस तरीके से लिखना है कि though constitution provides, but in actuality, up to the certain extent, it is not there. Right? Along with democracy is not related to only political dimensions. Democracy is not related to the political dimension. आप economic social aspect में भी तो हमें देखना पड़ेगा ना. Because in economic and social aspect, there is no equality and liberty. Still, there is a manifested injustice within the society. इकोनॉमिक स्पेयर में अगर आप देखेंगे इनइक्वलिटी रिपोर्ट्स आप देखेंगे ऑक्सफैम इंडिया की, so there is 1% people nearly hold the 50 to 60% wealth, right? So in democracy, people should treated be equally in the sense that in the economic aspect, they should also having the rights, but it is not there. In social aspect, there is also discrimination. The constitution restrict, or even it is a punishable offense to discriminate on the basis of caste or religion, but still is there. So हम डेमोक्रेसी तो हमने रूल पे ले लिया, इन पॉलिटिकल डायमेंशन में हमने ले लिया, रूल बुक में हो गया, बट इन ग्राउंड सिचुएशन still we are evolving towards the democracy. In true sense, we are not democratic right now. Right? So you can mention those terms. Okay, social discrimination is also there. Certain practices are there. Even rule of law is not perfectly implemented. So judicial trial is there, and people have to go through a long period of duration. Then only they get the justice. Even justice has become the based on the money. कि अगर आपके पास पैसा है, then only you can easily access the justice, not for the poor people, right? So health and education aspect में देखेंगे आप, health and education aspect में, so it is not for the common people. Those who are rich, those who have the resources, they are getting better facilities, right? So these are the certain negative aspects, but most of the aspect you have to mention the positive aspect of the democracy. Yes, we are democratic nation, but if he is asking from the critical point of view, then only you have to mention those negative aspect, but not necessarily. और नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट का जो पोर्शन रहेगा आपके आंसर में वो थोड़ा शॉर्ट रहेगा, ज्यादा बड़ा नहीं होना चाहिए, राइट? सो वी आर द डेमोक्रेटिक नेशन, वी अपहोल्ड द डेमोक्रेसी, बट वी आर द इवॉल्विंग डेमोक्रेसी. कंप्लीटली सेंस में अभी हम डेमोक्रेटिक नहीं है अभी, राइट? तो वो बेस्ड ऑन द क्वेश्चन है जो एग्जाम में एग्जामिनर किस तरीके से पूछता है. On the basis of it, you have to tilt your answer, right? Any doubt from your side? Please tell me.
सर, जो नेगेटिव कॉनोटेशन में क्या हम लिख सकते हैं कि जो फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच पे रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगा जा रहा है, वो मेंशन किया जा सकता है क्या?
Yes, freedom of speech में जैसे hate crimes हैं, even you can mention about the certain rights are protect, जो आपके privileges हैं to the privileges to the MP MLAs को है, स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव पार्लियामेंट प्रिविलेजेस हैं जो पार्लियामेंट को एंड MPs को हैं. इवन दे आल्सो रिस्ट्रिक्ट द freedom of speech and expression under the Article 19. So state also restrict the freedom of the people. So you can mention those things also, and it is also debatable right now, right? क्योंकि जो codification of privileges है वो नहीं है, and they also restrict the freedom of the people. Even recently, I think in Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, 2 reporters were imprisoned for the 2 months by the state legislature of the Karnataka, I think Karnataka or Tamil Nadu. So in democracy, it should not be there, because most of the democratic nations like the UK, there is either there is a codification or there is a no such thing, special privileges for the legislature. But Indian aspect में still there is a privilege are there, and it is also taken empower over the fundamental right. So you can mention this argument also, जो special privileges उनको. Or even if you know section 66A, right, which was later struck down by the Supreme Court in there was a case. So on that scenario ये था कि freedom को भी restrict कर रहे थे, right? So you can mention those arguments also, right? Even certain amendment made by the parliament which was later struck down by the Supreme Court, right? So you can mention all these things within the this argument, right? क्लियर हुआ आपका ये?
Yes, sir.
फाइन. तो डेमोक्रेसी में अगर वो पूछता है किसी भी एस्पेक्ट में, देन यू कैन मेंशन दो आर्गुमेंट. नाउ देयर वाज वन प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस कि जो रिपब्लिक से पहले जो भी केनोटेशंस थे, राइट, फॉर एग्जांपल सोवरेन, सोशलिस्ट, सेक्युलर, डेमोक्रेटिक, क्या वो अभी भी प्रेवलेंट है या फिर किसी भी तरीके का इन्फ्लुएंस है उनमें, राइट? सो इट वाज अ क्वेश्चन देयर, राइट? So basically this question was, let me recall it, to discuss each adjectives attached to the word republic in the preamble. Are they defendable in the present circumstances, right? Then the question is asking कि आप तो जो each जो word है they are attached to the republic, so sovereign, socialist, secular and democratic is attached to the republic. So are they defendable in current scenario, right? क्या अभी जो टर्म्स है वो करेंट सिनेरियो डिफेंडेबल है? डिफेंडेबल इन द सेंस कि स्टिल दे आर प्रिवलेंट और दे आर कर्टेल्ड. आर दे डिफेंडेबल और नॉट? जस्ट टेल मी. आप मुझे एक एक आर्गुमेंट बताते जाइए. इज इंडिया, हाउ द sovereignty of India is compromised? बताइए.
Sir, with participation in the WTO and UN.
Right, you can mention about the international norms and treaties, right? For example, WTO, you can mention about that, though we are having the peace clause right now, but there are certain tariff and quota system is there. So up to a certain extent you can have the trade, right? So anti-dumping duty can be imposed, right? Discriminatory practices are there. Even
patent regulation also.
Even the climate-based treaties are there, Kyoto protocols, just and Paris climate deal. So they also ask the state legislation to curtail their emissions, but still they are defendable or not? Just tell me. Are they defendable or not? Yes.
Yes,
right.
sir.
So they are defendable, right? So it is our sovereignty, it is Indian Parliament sovereignty to sign those treaty or not. They cannot force, right? There is influence of their international laws and norms is there, treaties, influence is there, but still we are sovereign because it is up to us to choose them or not to choose them, right? So it is our choice. So it is, yes, it is defendable. So both the argument you can be mentioned, it is defendable, right? Are we socialist right now? Right? So we have discussed about socialist structure of nation, right? So we are not completely socialist, but we are right now we are tilted towards the capitalism, but still are we socialist or not? Is it defendable or not? Please tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Welfare schemes.
Very good. I mentioned the term welfare state. So still Indian government make the effort for the betterment of people. Certain schemes and programs are there. Health schemes are there. So you can mention those health schemes. Ayushman Bharat scheme is there. Education institutions are there. Public sector units are there. So you can mention that. Yes, they are defendable. Secular is there. Secularism is defendable. Of course, I have mentioned lots of argument for the fundamental right from the basic structure argument. You can mention about SR Bomey case, right? It is a basic structure of the constitution. If something is basic structure, then फिर तो आप उसको मतलब हटा ही नहीं सकते ना. So it is a completely defendable, no issues in it. Democratic, right? So even if you know that welfare state is also the basic structure of the constitution, right? So उससे इस लिस्ट में आप उसको अपने आर्गुमेंट को जस्टिफाई कर सकते हैं. And even the democracy is also the part of the basic structures and people centric हैं. So those argument we have discussed, right to vote है, even the electoral reforms are going on, even government schemes है for the economic equalities and liberties की, right? Even the fundamental right itself, these fundamental right is basically promoting the democracy itself. If there is any curtailment of the fundamental right, by the parliament, the people can directly reach to the Supreme Court, High Court under Article 32 or 226, right? So itself is democracy is protected because people are supreme in the democracy. Even the constitutionalism, the concept of constitutionalism also limits the parliament, right? Basic structure doctrine limiting the parliament because constitution is supreme, right? So constitution is driving power from the people itself, right? So democracy is also the defendable, right? Even the examiner, if even if you don't know this concept कि defendable है या नहीं है, अगर हमने डिस्कस नहीं किया होता, स्टिल अगर आप लॉजिकल वे में देखिए, हमने जो स्टार्टिंग का 30 मिनट का जो सेशन था हमारा, हमने क्या डिस्कस किया था? बेसिक कंसेप्ट ही तो डिस्कस किए थे हमने सारे। तो अगर उस लॉजिक को भी आप अप्लाई करेंगे कि अगर सोवरेन, सोशलिस्ट, सेकुलर, डेमोक्रेटिक अगर डिफेंडेबल नहीं होगा, तो आपको लगता है कि मतलब डेमोक्रेसी मेंटेन हो पाएगी? जस्ट टेल मी, यस और नो, राइट? Because everything is moving around the people. Democracy is basically for the people, by the people. अगर वही compromise हो जाएगी, if that is not defendable, then neither there will be sovereignty, neither will be socialist, because socialist society work for the people, right? Neither will be secular, because if there is no secular, then India having the diversity of different religion, then at the cost of one religion, other religion will be compromised, right? So it will also not good for the democracy, then, and the democratic itself will be the compromise. So not necessarily in the exam hall की जो आप पढ़ के जाए वही वहां पे मिलेगा, बट हमने जो स्टार्टिंग के 30 to 40 मिनट्स में जो डिस्कस किया है, जो बेसिक हमने अंडरस्टैंडिंग की है, उसके बेसिस से आप पता कर सकते हैं कि दिस क्वेश्चन कैन बी सोल्व और नॉट, किस तरीके से लिख सकते हैं, क्या इसका क्रक्स होगा, क्या हमारा आंसर होना चाहिए। बिकॉज ओपिनियन बेस्ड क्वेश्चन अगर एग्जामिनर पूछ रहा है आपसे, सो आप अगर बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है आपको, तो आप उसको इजीली सॉल्व कर सकते हैं। आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट, जो मैं आपको बताना चाह रहा हूँ?
यस सर।
राइट, तो आप बेसिक जो हमने स्टार्टिंग किया वो आप उसको मोटो समझिए कि हम जितना भी लिखेंगे एग्जाम हॉल में, वो सिर्फ उसी के मोटो के बेसिस पे हम लिखेंगे, बट हमारे आर्गुमेंट है वो हम कभी फंडामेंटल राइट से हम उसको जस्टिफाई कर देंगे, कभी पार्लियामेंट के फंक्शन से जस्टिफाई कर देंगे, कभी स्टेट के फंक्शन से जस्टिफाई कर देंगे, कभी जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडीज हैं, स्टेचुरी बॉडीज हैं, अल्टीमेटली व्हाई दे आर वर्किंग फॉर अस, उसके बेसिस पे हम आर्गुमेंट पे जस्टिफाई कर देंगे। एंड सम पीपल इफ दे आर नॉट अपहोल्डिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज, इट इज सेड दैट कि आपकी फ्रीडम वहीं तक है जब तक आप दूसरी की फ्रीडम को कर्टेल नहीं कर रहे, राइट? तो अगर आप सम पीपल आर नॉट फॉलोइंग दोस प्रिंसिपल ऑफ वैल्यूज और इथोस ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, then those people will be punished, right? Equality does not mean treating everyone equal, right? If someone is not within the domain of the constitution, or he is making certain acts which are against the humanity or against the constitutional value, then he must be punished, right? तो इस एस्पेक्ट में भी हमें चीजें देखनी पड़ेंगी, बट ऑल थिंग्स विल बी रिवॉल्व अराउंड द डेमोक्रेटिक सेटअप। तो जो भी आपको ओपिनियन बेस्ड क्वेश्चन आएगा एग्जाम में, then constitution will be your main book, supreme court judgment will be your main book, and then committees recommendations और constitutional पे जो भी रिकमेंडेशन दी गई हैं, जो भी रिफॉर्म कमीशंस बने हैं, वो आपके रहेंगे, बट पीपल विल बी द सेंटर ऑफ ऑल दोस आर्गुमेंट, राइट? तो बेसिक इथोस नहीं होने चाहिए कॉम्प्रोमाइज आपके, राइट? फाइन,
यस सर।
यस सर।
ओके, तो आपको आज के लिए काफी है या फिर थोड़ा रेस्ट चाहिए, फिर स्टार्ट करें क्लास अभी?
सर आज के लिए इतना ही रहने चाहिए, कल फिर पढ़ेंगे।
अच्छा अच्छा, सो
नो,
ठीक है, एक बार हम इंटरेक्शन कर लेते हैं, राइट? दैट विल बी बेटर फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस, क्योंकि मुझे भी रिव्यू मिल जाएगा ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दैट आई कैन। तो अभी आपको क्या दिख रहा है बताइए मुझे, स्क्रीन पे स्क्रीन दिख रहा है आपको?
यस सर।
अभी हमारा प्रीएम्बल कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ, फाइन, उसको पहले कंप्लीट कर लेते हैं। नाउ So we have discussed that nature and form of the government we have discussed. Then the preamble is also talking about the justice, right? This justice is in which form? Social, economic, and political. So justice, if a justice talking about social aspect, economic aspects, and political aspects, then the justice is inclusive justice, right? So you have to mention third point is inclusive justice. Preamble is talking about the inclusive justice. So democracy, these three things should be in a fairness manner. Justice is a fairness, that unreasonable discriminations should not be there, right? Discrimination can be there, no issues in it, because based on the affirmative actions of the government for the upliftment of the weaker section of the societies. But this discrimination should be reasonable. It should not be unreasonable. It should be reasonable. That's why we are talking about the justice. Social aspect, we have framed those fundamental right, untouchability has been banned, certain act passed by the state, for example, checking the atrocity against the SC communities, and civil rights act, right, passed by the government. Even some affirmative policies of the government for the weaker section, National Food Security Act, MG Narega Act, it is for the social domain. In economic domain also, livelihood and employment opportunity, everyone having the equality of opportunity in the economic aspect. Same with the political aspect. The state will not discriminate anyone in the political aspect. So the justice will also be ensured in the political domain also. So rule of law, what is the rule of law is talking about? Right to vote is talking about. It is the political justice. So it is the duty of the state, right? Because state is the welfare state, right? State is a welfare state, is working for the people, so that they can ensure the justice for the people, right? So it is the duty of the state that they ensure the justice for the people, because if there is a justice, then can only be a just society, right? Then only there can be fairness, else there will be chaos. One group or one class can be overruling over the other class, right? So there will be no justice, there will be no democracy ultimately, then there will be no sovereignty. It will also disturb the secularism, right? That's why justice, you can mention your examples that we have discussed about it. Now justice, then it is justice कैसा था हमारा? Inclusive justice. So you have to mention the term inclusive justice, right? Then preamble is also promoting the liberty and equality, right? Because justice is not possible, as we discussed in the earlier session, justice is not possible if there is no liberty or equality, and there is no fraternity. These are the three trinity. These are the trinity for the justice. So whenever you find the term justice, it is very much important these three terms you have to mention, or these three terms should be there. So in preamble itself, it is mentioned, these three terms mention liberty of thought, एक्सप्रेशन. पहले आपको सोचना है फिर बोलना है, ऐसा नहीं है कि केवल आपको बोलना है. That's why you use the term thought first, right? But people have to speak first, thought, then speak, then express yourself, then express yourself. Why? Because people can express themselves. It is the good for the democracy. People can realize its potential. They can raise their voice against their right towards the government. They can also criticize the government. they can ask for their rights and they can realize their potential. उनमें कितना potential है, उनकी क्या requirement है, क्या need है, वो state को बोल सकते हैं. Even they can raise voice against the state if they are not doing the good for them. Even this expression is not related to the speech. Even this expression is also talking about the belief, faith, and religious, right? Worship. How secularism is protected by the preamble itself, right? First, you should have belief, then you have faith, then you can worship. The people cannot worship without belief or faith. देखिए कितने अच्छे तरीके से फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में टर्म्स को यूज किया है. They have not used the term worship first, then belief, then faith, right? First, you should have the belief, then you generate the faith, then only you can worship, right? So preamble itself, you can mention constitution itself. Preamble itself is promoting the secularism, religious freedom at the individual level, right? Because it is giving the liberty for that, right? Now talking about the status in the sense equality. How equality in the sense you are treating everyone equally. जो लोग इक्वल हैं उनको आप इक्वली ट्रीट कर रहे हैं. तो इक्वल किस तरीके से करेंगे कि आप जो स्टेटस है, स्टेटस इन द सेंस if someone is rich, someone is poor, then equality cannot be maintained. In social sphere, whether it is a rich or poor, you have to states will treat everyone equally. ये नहीं है कि अगर आप गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस गए तो एक पुअर पर्सन है उसको आपने चेयर नहीं दिया और एक रिच पीपल आपने उसको चेयर ऑफर कर दी. इट मे बी देयर बट इट इज नॉट एज पर द ethos or values of the constitutions. So status, everyone should be treated equally, those who are having the equality. तो जो इक्वल डोमेन में आप उसको ट्रीट कीजिए, स्टेटस को आप इक्वलिटी करिए along with opportunities. This opportunity can be related to the economic sphere. Equality of opportunity in economic sphere in the sense of jobs, the admission of education institutions, even in the health aspect in hospitals. It is not like that कि भी rich है government hospital उनको priority दी जाए, the poor दो और और आप एक particular region को ही केवल promote करें. That is also against the ethos of the constitution. So opportunities, basically talking about the opportunity in the aspect of economic dimensions, also talking about the political dimensions, right? So anyone can fight for the election. कोई भी election के लिए fight कर सकता है, कोई भी leader बन सकता है. That is another thing कि नहीं जीत पा रहे वो लोग, but anyone, a common people can be the prime minister of India. Okay? Then fraternities is talking about the fraternities. Fraternity in the sense हिंदी में बोलते हैं इसको भाईचारा, right? भाईचारा. So if there is a fraternity, then only fraternity कैसे आएगी? आप किसी को आप dignity, किसी की individual dignity को आप respect कर रहे हैं, right? That's a fundamental duty is talking about the respecting the dignity of women, right? But dignity, any individual, whether it's a rich or poor, belongs to any caste, region, you should respect the dignity of the individual, right? They are not talking about a society right now, because in society we talk about the collectivity, and at the sometimes at the grounds of the collectivity, individuality of a person can be compromised. That's why they specifically mention about the dignity of the individual, right? So individual dignity should not be compromised, because that democracy itself will be compromised. Then equality will not be mentioned, right? So in order to maintain the equality or liberty, in order to ensure the justice, it is very much necessary that fraternity is mentioned. Uphold fraternity कब आप uphold कर सकते हैं जब there is a dignity is there, individual dignity को आप maintain कर सकते हैं. And then unity and integrity of nation, unity and integrity of nation. जब आपने justice ensure कर ही दिया, जब आपने liberty सबको दी ही दी, equality आपने कर ली, right? Fraternity आपने promote कर ही लिया, then integrity of nation अपने आप हो ही जाएगा, right? So this such a way you mention the unity and integrity of nation, because it is very much important कि unity of integrity of a nation is upheld. क्योंकि अगर unity ही नहीं है, अगर कोई state है, then it is not a moral state, right? It is not a welfare state. The unity and integrity is very much important for a state. Then last, right? Then lastly, the date of adoption, because without date, time and place, it is incomplete, right? So constitution किस date of adaptation है preamble के लिए, right? So date of adaptation they have mentioned it is the 26th November 1949. Right? So these are the things they are mentioned in the preamble itself. Right? Now, यहाँ तक किसी को कोई डाउट है? Fine.
Sir,
हाँ जी.
sir, can you explain once more the dignity of individual? Why written individual rather than society?
There are two things, like society and individual, right? Individual को club करके society बनती है, right? But society talks about the collectivities, right? Common choice की बात करती है society, while individual talk about the individual aspect. But there are certain aspects, there are many aspects where on the ground of society, individual freedom is compromised, right? Certain things are legal within the society, but societal grounds पे वो क्या होती है, वो compromise हो जाती है. तो अगर आप सब इंडिविजुअल की डिग्निटी अगर आप मेंशन करके रख रहे हैं, तो सोसाइटी की इंटीग्रिटी तो अपने आप ही डिग्निटी तो मेंटेन हो ही जाएगी ना. If you are respecting everyone, you are not discriminating anyone against the caste, religion, economic status, सबको एक साथ ट्रीट कर रहे हैं, तो सोसाइटल डिग्निटी विल बी मेंशन. बट नॉट नेसेसरली अगर आप सोसाइटी की डिग्निटी में मेंशन करके चल रहे हैं, तो इंडिविजुअल की डिग्निटी मेंटेन हो जाए, राइट?
Yes,
यहाँ
okay.
हाँ, तो इसलिए इंडिविजुअल डिग्निटी की बात करें. द फ्रेमर ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अगर उन्होंने टाइम लिया है, तो नॉट टाइम फॉर प्रिंटिंग द पेपर्स, उन पे डिबेट, डिस्कशन, थिंकिंग करके फिर इसलिए टाइम लिया उन्होंने, राइट? डेट और अपडेशन उनका मेंशन कर दिया गया है, राइट? The next question can be asked, is preamble is amendable? Second, is preamble the part of constitution? If yes, then mention the constitution judgment or justify your argument. Right? Tell me, is preamble is amendable? Okay, preamble can be amended or not? Yes, right? 42 amendment constitution 1976 has amended three things itself, right? Social, secular, and unity and integrity of India. So you mentioned with your examples, right? Is it integral part of constitution?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you can mention your judgment, which are the judgment famous for it?
LIC of India, no case.
Okay, and
Keswanand Bharati case.
very good. So it was in Keshwanand Bharti case, 1973. Then it was said, along with all other significant judgment, it is also said that preamble is integral part of the constitution, right? So you can mention that. You can also mention one more judgment is there, Berubari case, 1960. In that it was said that preamble is not part of constitution, right? So when you're making your argument, you can say that in earlier judgment in Berubari case, it was said that preamble is not the part of the constitution, but later it was rectified that under the Keshwanand Bharti case in 1973, and it is clearly mentioned that preamble is the integral part of the constitution, right? So in 2 lines you can mention these 2 things. Then even in Supreme Court is said that constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of grand and noble vision of constitution. This is the basically the significance of the constitution. So it is acting as a light post, right? It is a guiding light, right? It is acting as a guiding light for the Supreme Court also. That constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of grand and novel vision of the constitution. So if in the either in the conclusion or based on the question, you can justify your argument. Okay, what is the significance of the preamble? The preamble is saying that the Supreme Court, you can mention Keshwanand Bharti case, the court argues that the constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of grand and novel vision of the constitution. So it also reflects why, because it reflects the vision and philosophy of constitution and also the constitutional framers कि उनके क्या व्यूज थे, वो किस तरीके का भारत चाहते थे, वो भी एक तरीके से रिफ्लेक्ट करता है. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की स्पिरिट भी आप इसको कह सकते हैं, soul of the constitution, right? This is the significance of the constitution. Have you read Gandhi's तलिस्मा? एक गांधी जी का तलिस्मा है, उसका आप जरूर पढ़ना, वो आपको सौरभ सर पढ़ाएंगे, right? That is very much for ethics. उसमें कहते हैं कि जब आप किसी डायलामा में हो और आपको नहीं पता है कि आपको क्या डिसीजन लेना है, then you remember the face of a poor people. जो पुअर से पुअर हो उसका फेस रिकॉग्नाइज करो एंड आप फिर ये सोचो कि जो आप एक्शन ले रहे हैं उस पर किस तरीके का इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा, whether it will be good for him or bad for him, right? तो इसी तरीके का प्रियम्बल है. सो कोर्ट कैन यूज द प्रियम्बल इन सच ए वे दैट कि अगर वहीं पे कहीं पे इश्यूज आ रहे हैं, क्रिएट आ रहे हैं, then it can be used as a guiding light because it is also reflecting the democratic vision of the constitution. Fine. ये आपका यहाँ पे significance of the constitution हो जाएगा, though it is non-justiciable. Justiciable का मतलब होता है कि आप उसको अगर कोई provision है, in case there is issues in it, then you cannot directly reach to the court. You cannot directly reach to the court. बस ये है. Fine. So जितने भी questions बन सकते हैं preamble से, वो यहाँ तक बन जाएंगे. Fine. प्रियम्बल में अगर कोई किसी को डाउट है बताइए आप मुझे प्लीज. नहीं, ठीक है, फिर हम दो टर्म्स हैं, एक समराइज्ड वे में उनको डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. द फर्स्ट टर्म इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म. इट इज वेरी मच इन न्यूज राइट नाउ, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म, एंड देयर इज वन मोर टर्म इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी. प्लीज टेल मी व्हाट इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म.
Limited government means the government authority is determined by a body of laws or the constitution.
Very good, nice. So it's basically evolved or during the time of IR Coelho case. It is a very much important judgment, right? I will discuss it again after some time. IR Coelho case में the constitutional what is constitutionalism? Supreme Court said that it is a legal principle. What she said is absolutely right. It is a legal principle that mandates control over exercise power of government. You can say exercise government power, right? To ensure that democratic principles, ethos are not compromised. So, एक तरीके से जो गवर्नमेंट है उसको कैसे कर रहे हैं, लिमिटेड कर रहे हैं, right? Why it is limited?
Sir, can you read it, the sentence that you wrote?
It is the legal principle that mandates over that maintains controls over exercise of government power to ensure that democratic principles and ethos are not compromised. Right? So basically, it is saying that whether it is a parliament or government, they are limited. They are limited. Why they are limited? Because Constitution is supreme. These, whether the organs of government, if you want to widen this discussion, then you can mention the organ of government, whether it is the legislative, whether it is the executive, or whether it is judiciaries. They have to act as per the ethos, values, and principle of the constitutions, right? Because Constitution of India is supreme, right? So they limit the power of government, or you can mention power of parliament. They can next can frame question with respect to executive or judiciaries. Government is executive, legislative lawmaking body, and judiciary. You can also mention any question is related to the judiciary. You can also mention that judiciary is also not supreme, rather than it is the supremacy of the constitution. So in such a way, you can mention those things with there, right? So constitutionalism किस तरीके से अपहोल्ड मेंशन किया जाता है? Constitutionalism, how we are uphold. First, there is a written constitution. If I want to break it, I can say that the constitution is also discussing about the basic structure, right? Constitution supreme है, ये judgment के थ्रू पता चलता है कि there are certain judgment which uphold the constitutionality, and those terms which cannot be compromised by the parliament, whether executives and judiciary. These are the basic structures. So you can also justify or exemplify your argument कि what is the necessary propositions for the constitutionalism. First is written constitution, second is rule of law. These are the things which limiting the whether it is a parliament or whether it is a government. These are the things which are limiting. Written constitution, rule of law, fundamental rights also limiting, directive principle state policy, certain provisions of directive principle state policies under the schedule 7, independent judiciaries, which judgment is talking about the separation of judiciary from the executive. Which famous
Article
judgment?
50. Sorry.
It is Article 50, but which judgment? Right? It was NJSC, right? It was the case related to the NJSC struck down by the Supreme Court. It was related to 1999 Constitutional Amendment Act, which led to the formation of the NJSC. But later it was struck down by the Supreme Court on the ground that separation of the executive from the judiciary is the basic structure of the constitution, right? Independent judiciary is very much important, and basic structure of the constitution itself is the ground for the constitutionalism, right? So these things you can mention if examiner asks you that what is the constitutionalism. Any doubt from the constitutionalism, please let me know. Fine. Now let's discuss about the constitutional morality. Is there anyone who have not read the constitutional morality? Please reply, because that is betterment for you. आपके लिए बढ़िया है वो. अगर किसी ने constitutional morality बिल्कुल नहीं पढ़ा है, वो बता दीजिए उन्होंने नहीं पढ़ा है. वो प्लीज उनके लिए काफी betterment के लिए रहेगा, इसलिए मैं आपसे पूछ. कोई है जिसने नहीं पढ़ा है constitutional morality बिल्कुल भी? बताइए प्लीज.
मैंने नहीं पढ़ा है.
वेरी गुड. आप मुझे बताइए constitutional morality क्या है? Just think. There are two terms. First is constitutional, दूसरा is morality, right?
यस सर।
अब बताइए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी क्या है? मैंने
किस
आपसे कहा
कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हो रहा है पता नहीं चलता।
कॉन्टेक्स्ट से आपको मतलब नहीं है, आप बस ये बताइए कि दो टर्म्स इसमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी है, राइट? मैं इसलिए बता रहा हूँ कि एग्जाम में काफी क्वेश्चंस, अगर एक दो क्वेश्चंस ऐसे आते हैं जो आपने नहीं पढ़े हैं, बट टर्म्स को ब्रेक डाउन करिए एंड देन राइट द डेफिनेशन। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल एंड मोरालिटी दो टर्म्स है, उन्होंने एक बना दिया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटीज, राइट? इफ morality is upheld based on constitutional provisions, then it is known as constitutional moralities, right? ये डेफिनेशन आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगी, राइट? किसी भी बुक में नहीं मिलेगी, किसी जजमेंट में नहीं मिलेगी, बट जितनी भी आपको डेफिनेशन मिलेंगी वो सब यही बातें कर रही होंगी, राइट? कि आप मोरलिटी को अपहोल्ड कर रहे हैं, राइट? बट किस ग्राउंड पे कर रहे हैं? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस के बेसिस पे कर रहे हैं। व्हाट डज इट सेइंग? कि आपका जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, इट इज नॉट लिमिटेड टू ओनली लॉज और नॉट ए रिजिड बुक, राइट? Rather than along with the rules and regulations, laws, power and functions, it also having the certain moral grounds. Moral grounds is showing that it is a living document, right? It is a living document. It also having some moral principles. So while making any judgment or while making law by parliament, or while delivering the justice by the court, the constitutional morality should also be upheld. Right? Constitutional morality should also be upheld. Can you give me the example of constitutional morality?
Secularism.
Fine. Secularism. You can mention.
Equality.
Very good.
Fraternity.
Very good. Affirmative actions of the government is also the part of the you can say it, right? What else? Preamble is not there, but tell me.
So the basic structure itself.
Very good. Basic structure itself. Preamble itself is also promoting ना. Preamble भी तो एक तरीके से कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मोरालिटी को अपहेल्ड कर रहा है, पूरे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के वैल्यूज बता रहे हैं, वो भी तो है। फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस।
एक्चुअली समझ में नहीं आ रहा है थोड़ा, मतलब कुछ एग्जांपल्स दे कैसे?
एग्जांपल
मतलब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी क्या है वो समझ में।
आई एम गिविंग द एग्जांपल LGBT communities, right? Section 377 criminalize, right? What is criminalized? Homosexualities, right? Criminalization comes from the government, right? There are two people on the same sex, right? If they want to marry or they want to live in, then state is criminalizing it. On the which principles, on the which values they are criminalizing it? Because on the social moralities, right? Because so-called different people, they are not different, but so-called different people are not accepted by the certain groups of the people within the society. So based on social morality, state made, I'm not sure make, it is a made because it's decriminalized right now. State made rule that homosexuality is a criminal offense, right? यहाँ तक समझ में आया आपको? क्योंकि सोसाइटी में
सर,
एक्सेप्टेंस नहीं
अब
था,
समझ में।
but constitutions having that values equality, that person should have equality, should not be discriminated based on the gender. He should having a liberty, should not be discriminated based on the gender. Then what is and later Supreme Court in Navtej Johar case decriminalized it. Then on which ground it was decriminalized? Based on the constitutional moralities, right? So it is the constitutional morality. There may be certain issues within the society. The society can having their own moralities, and it may be discriminatory, but ultimately constitution is supreme. But ensure the equality and liberty for everyone, then only justice can you deliver, and that the judgment is delivered, and that judgment uphold the constitutional moralities, right? किस ग्राउंड पे उसको जजमेंट मिला? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी ग्राउंड पे मिला, फाइन. सो फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस एंड एक्सप्रेशन, ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस एंड एक्सप्रेशन होगी आपकी. तो क्या आप क्या किया? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी किया, बोल गया है. देयर इज वन पब्लिक मोरालिटीज, राइट. पब्लिक बताएंगे वो मोरालिटी होगा पब्लिक का. सबरीमाला का ये इश्यूज आया था, राइट. सबरीमाला टेम्परेरी इश्यूज, the Supreme Court struck down it. Yes. Article 25 was there, Article 26 was there. The religious dominations can frame their rules according to their wishes. But on the ground of Article 14 and Article 15 and Article 19, it was struck down, right? Women were allowed entry in the temple. Though there is a review petition, that is another thing. Constitution upholds that. Okay. People cannot be discriminated based on the gender, right? So the constitution itself having the moral principles, the equality, upholding the equality and liberty and ensuring the justice of fraternity itself is a morality, right? ये भी तो morality है ना? Am I right or wrong? Right?
Yes, sir.
So that way the constitutional morality is mentioned. ठीक है, कोई definitions होंगी, बहुत complex होंगी, but ultimately it is the constitutional morality because it is my work to simplifying the thing for you, right? Fine. Any issues? बताइए, कोई डाउट है आपका? तो constitutional morality सही से समझ में आया? ठीक है. So I think it is enough for the today. It is at 2:30. अब आपको किसी भी सेगमेंट में किसी भी तरीके का डाउट है, then please let me know.
सर जो लास्ट को वो स्टेजेस वाला फिर से एक्सप्लेन कर दीजिए.
क्या करें सर आप?
स्टेजेस सर, हाँ, मतलब इवोल्यूशन ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी, जस्ट
Evolution of constitutional morality. Okay. What is the constitutional moralities? Evolution तो आपको नहीं पता चलेगा. Though in there was a discussion in the Constitutional Assembly by the Ambedkar is also there, and Ambedkar ji said.
नहीं सर, आपने जो लास्ट को एक्सप्लेन किया था पब्लिक मोरालिटी के साथ कुछ लिंक किया था, तो आई मिस दैट.
Okay, fine. There is a public and social moralities, right? Both are the same. Whether it's a public or is a social morality, nearly same. There are certain norms within the public or within the society. They think they are morally right. They think they are the morally right. For example, not allowing the women within the temple, or not the temple, rather than you say Sabrimala temple, right? Because in temple women are allowed. Sabrimala temples. Female mutation, I think Saurabh sir have discussed it, right? Female mutation. If you know that there is a pending in the court right now, these petitions are pending in the Supreme Court right now. Female mutation, allowing the entry of women in the masjid, I think, right? These are the petition within the court itself right now. So these are the social norms. These
Sir,
are the
what is
public norms.
female mutation?
Female genital mutations. Those are the things,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Right. These are the things, right? So there are certain social norms, and they think they are the moralities, right? They are right. Same as with the LGBT. So they think they are the right. In the case of the Sabrimala, the Article 25 and Article 26, the 25 talks about the individual freedom of religion, and 26 talks about the freedom for the religious dominations. A certain group of the religion, they can frame the rules and regulation for the administration of their own religious institutions. So on that grounds, they restrict the entry of the women within the Sabrimala temples, right? So these are their social moralities. That was their public moralities, right? But on the grounds of the constitution principles, constitution values, the Article 14 and Article 15 and the Article 19, which is talking about the freedom of speech and expressions, and the right to privacy, the same is the Article 14 and 15, which do not allow discrimination on the basis of sex, right, or gender, right? So in that scenario, constitution allow the Supreme Court allow the entry of the women within the Sabrimala temple, because in that scenario the constitutional morality is upheld. Why constitutional morality is upheld? So on the eyes of the constitution, no one will be discriminated based on the gender. Everyone will having the equalities. They are not discriminating anyone based on the gender. So in this particular case, the constitutional morality was upheld and social morality was stuck down, right? Because social morality does not have any backing. Law backing to hai nahi hai. Constitution ko ultimately you have to work as per the constitution. So this is the constitutional moralities. There may be the chances where social morality and constitutional morality will be clashing. Chances there will be a chances that इन दोनों में issues होंगे. But firstly try to solve those issue amicably. पहले प्यार से solve करिए इनको अच्छे से, प्रेम से, कि हो जाए तो ठीक है. अगर in that scenario it is not solved, then uphold the constitutional morality. जैसे सबरीमाला केस में हुआ. And it was the statement of the Ambedkar that he said that there are chances where there is a conflict within the social norms or the constitutional provisions. Then the effort should be made to solve those conflicts in an amicable way. अगर नहीं होता है, then constitutional morality should be upheld. It does not, ऐसा नहीं कहे constitutional morality का uphold करिए, but he said amicably should be solved under the light of the constitution's provisions, right? ठीक है, the same way, whether it is the legislative, whether it is the executive, whether it is the judiciary, they should act as per the constitutional moralities, right? Clear हुआ सर आपको?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Basic understanding हो गया ना? अभी भी कोई इश्यू है तो बताइए आप. हो गया ना आपका? बताइए. क्या हुआ बताइए आप. फाइन. तो फिर अभी कोई और डाउट है तो आप बताइए मुझे.